Is Joanne coming? Did Joanne?
No, she had a family emergency. She called me.
Okay.
So if you want to introduce yourself for anybody who might not know you.
Linda Cocalis, I'm the chairman of the Board of Health.
Bree Eichstadt, health agent.
Before we get started, I want to just thank your committee for supporting the Board of Health last year in reference to the landfill in Southbridge. And many of you have probably already heard that it was pretty successful on the part of the Sturbridge Board of Health and the surrounding communities in actually stopping the expansion for the landfill. And we also still have a ways to go on some of the contamination issues on McGilpin Road. So we're working closely with the DEP, the selectmen, Leon, and our state rep and senators. So
Good.
they supported us as well. So I just wanted to make sure I thanked you guys for supporting that effort. It was money well spent.
Good.
And there's still money left over. So,
Oh,
You're welcome.
so.
good.
Which leads me to a question right away. There's nothing in here, so are you going to be asking for more money for legal action in a warrant article, or?
No, probably not for legal right now at this point. There's still money left over in the legal. I think what we'll have to do is there's going to be one last part for the landfill, and that's the closure. And we may need maybe some help on drafting that. We're going to work probably with the hydrogeologist to take a look at the closing, because there will be comments that will be allowed from the public to influence the DEP or to guide the DEP in other things that they may leave out that we want to make sure is in place during the closure and the long-term monitoring.
Okay, want to delve right into the budget here?
So I think that,
Actually, this is your report.
yeah, it's my, so I think Bree you've only been here, what, 2 months? Something like that?
I think 6 weeks-ish.
6 weeks, okay, so closing in on 2 months, and we've had a lot of department heads who've been here for a long time, which is a good institutional resource for the town, but it's also good to have people come in that take a fresh look at things, and it seems like you've done that based on the memo that you sent out, which I think we've all read,
Did everybody get that? Because otherwise I have copies.
yeah.
If you need one.
So it looks like
You got-
there are a couple of issues that were highlighted by people based on their questions. One is the Title V thing, I think is probably the most important. I think the rest of the budget's more or less level funded, right? And the Beaver situation, I guess some people have a lot of interest in that. The landfill looks like it's pretty much also level funded. So do you want to dive right into the Title V issue, or do you want to do an overview
Sure.
first? Okay.
So I think some of the questions that, I'll just paraphrase,
Yep.
I believe what you guys are asking for is, why do you think we need an individual inspector to just deal with all of the Title V issues, septic, construction of septic systems, and also doing the perk test? Since we had last met, there has been, the Baker administration has going department by department within the state of changing all of the regulations. Almost all of the regulations for the Board of Health are going to change over this next year. That would be housing, that would be food, that would have to do with pools, day camps, everything that we actually do currently regulate. So many of you know, and if you don't know, the local boards of health actually have the authority to have more stringent regulations than the actual state regulations. So as they are going through the process, we're going to have to take a look at a lot of the regulations that we do have, that we regulate. We actually just adopted the state regulations, that we don't have more restrictive regulations. So we're going to have to see what they had and what we're going to have, and whether or not we actually need to have something more protective of a regulation. So we're going to have to really start diving into that. That's going to take time. Regulations take a while in order to go through them. And we also, if we are going to change and have our own regulations, we have to advertise, hold hearings in order to proceed. So that's going to take up a huge amount of time. The other thing that I would say was an unknown in the past is the regulations with the marijuana regulations. And many of you have heard that since the town is going to allow to have a medical marijuana facility, they may also independently have a facility that is also for retail sales. That's something also that the state, Massachusetts Association of Health Boards is actually looking into some of the regulations, because boards of health will be affected by that in regulating and also being able to permit these facilities. So we have a lot of new stuff that will be happening that probably didn't exist 2 years ago or a year ago. Previously, when we had a full-time agent, I would say about 60% of their time had been spent out in the field previously. And in order to be more efficient and to better serve the community, we actually need someone full-time in that office to start working on all of our regulations and also updating all of our fees. Our fees probably haven't been updated in probably at least 6, 7 years. We're going to take a look across the board at all of our fees. That would include the septic fees, hotels, restaurants, every fee that we actually do deal with. So we're going to take a look across the board. Some may lower, some may go up. I would say a majority of them will probably go up. And we're taking a look at different towns and seeing where their fees are. We're not going to come in at the highest. We're going to probably come in as average is kind of the basis that we're looking at. We don't want to be the most expensive, but we don't want to be the cheapest. We just want to make sure that the fee structure is fair, where we could also pay the inspector a fair rate in order to do it and still be able to accomplish all the other things that we have going on. So that's part of the reason why I think it would be best serving the community and the town and the taxpayers if the fees for the septic inspections basically pay for the services that are being done by that inspector.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
So, in the past, those fees were basically revenue.
They went into the general fund.
So, did you do any kind of analysis on how much money we were making on those versus
Okay.
if we're gonna pay the inspector 90% of that fee? Is it more cost-effective to pay a percentage of the fee versus paying them some sort of salary or hourly rate?
Well, part of the fee, okay, is actually going to be done, say on a perk test, for instance. The way we structured it is on a perk test, we will be paying an hourly fee of $40 an hour.
Okay.
And based on, that's for a 3-hour perk on average. So the amount of money that we're going to be charging for a perk proposing, that we're going to, where is it?
200.
So it'd be $200 for one perk for 3 hours. And the $40 an hour for 3 hours would go to that person. So in that case, we're actually, the town would be getting more money than than the 10%. For a plan review, some of the other inspectional services that will require a permit and a fee, that would be 90%. We're doing it as a flat fee. I think if we did it from a salary perspective, it would be difficult because in some cases the town would be losing out, and in other cases, we wanted to make sure that the town was not in the hole for the money. That's why we kind of looked at it from a better equitable point of view of actually doing it a fee on a flat rate of what they would get and what the town would get. That way, we don't have to worry about, this year we have 400 perks, or not 400, but say 100 perks, which could happen with a development, or you could have, 30 perks that year. So it's really hard for us to gauge on how much money we're going to need and whether or not, if we're paying that person on an hourly basis and they're out in the field a lot more, I would be coming here asking for a fund transfer. So
And how did you come up with the 90-10 ratio?
I based it off of, as I was telling people earlier, The plumbing inspector actually used to be under the Board of Health when I first got on the Board of Health. And at that point in time, the fee structure was 90-10. In fact, we basically do that on some of our other permits when we have a special event permit that's required on the town common and people are serving food and whatever. I need to make sure I can cover the expenses of the inspector, and then a percentage goes to the town for administrative costs and overhead.
So, just so I understand, is it fair to say then, when you looked at this, it was going to financially benefit the town more by paying this percentage versus paying somebody as an employee?
The person would still be an employee of the town. However, they're being paid on a flat fee basis.
Okay, and that turned out to be more beneficial when you did the analysis?
I would believe it's more beneficial because opposed to paying our full-time agent to go out in the field, our previous agent actually made substantially more than Bree because she was here for a long time.
Right.
I would rather pay someone $16,000 a year out of the fees than pay someone who's getting a salary of $65,000 a year to go and spend 60% of their time out in the field. So from that perspective, I think that it's a win that we actually parse that out. But I don't want to get into the whole debate about fees versus taxes, but there is a standard of we're not supposed to be actually making revenue off of fees. It's supposed to be actually for a specific service. So we can't really look at it from a generating of revenue perspective under the state law.
All right, and one more question. If, you talked about a lot of the need for this is because there's a lot of things this year that you're going to be doing that you haven't had to do in the past.
I would say that there's a lot of new things that are going on right now, especially with the medical marijuana, the opioid crisis, that really wasn't, I would say, people weren't looking at it the way they're looking at it now a year ago. And also, like I said, almost every single regulation that we actually are in charge of, they're all changing, including Title V. Every single regulation is going to change. And we're going to have to take a hard look on what was the old regulation, what are they proposing on the new regulation, and does Sturbridge actually have to have a more stringent regulation? And that's going to take probably well over a year to actually start doing that, so.
So this Title V position, this inspector, is this something you anticipate is a long-term way that we're going to handle this? Or is this a short-term?
I would propose that it might be the best way to handle this because, like, if you just take the building department, the building inspector doesn't do plumbing and electrical as well. And there's so many other things that the agent needs to do and participate in. In fact, our emergency management area of planning for emergencies in this town has not really been done effectively by our board. So I would say now that the town does have a person that is dedicated to doing that, we started working more closely with them and trying to align up where we meet and where we don't meet certain things. So I would say, looking back, when I had proposed what I did propose last year of a part-time agent, and I definitely needed a full-time inspector. That was a given. But if I was given no other choice, I would have taken that at that time because getting my inspections done was more important than I would have had to take on all of the other legwork myself. But with a full-time agent, which is great, I wouldn't have to do all of the work myself as a volunteer.
So that's what I'm trying to reconcile in my mind is, last year, I remember discussing, I think it was Selectmen as well as here, we were funding the agent position at full-time, although you had someone in there part-time, and
Right.
I thought you were very adamant that
We could have done the
that
job.
worked very well, we're doing a good job, you were okay with that, you wanted more money for the inspector, which got funded.
Right.
Now it's different this year.
And
I've got
I think,
a
yeah.
competent agent here full-time. I have my full-time inspector.
Right.
And now I still need this additional help beyond that, where you're okay with what you had last year. Now you're growing.
I would say that under the boards of health, just so you know, that if I need an inspector to go out and just do pulls, we actually have the ability to hire someone just to do that through our fee basis. And that's under the Mass General Law. So I would like your support on all of this. I'm telling you what I know we need now. It was different last year. They weren't proposing all these changes to Mass General Law under all of our regulations either, where I'm going to have to take a look at every single regulation. If you see in the regulations that we actually cover, we cover more regulations than anybody else in this entire town. The book is this big. Everything from housing to everything.
So if someone were to say, why do we need a marijuana regulation? The state has a commission, they're gonna
No,
come
it's
up
not-
with some
it's not a-
regulations.
it's not a regu-
To figure out what they are and what you want to adopt.
We are
for the
we are
town.
also in a wait and see kind of perspective too, but it doesn't mean that we have to be on top of it. We actually have to go to meetings and learn what these regulations mean to the boards of health in the state. Because even though it's legal and they have regulations, we also have the ability to go in and inspect to make sure they are also doing it properly. Just like we inspect all the restaurants in town, just like we inspect the hotels in town, there's state regulations for all of those things. But it always winds up on at the local level for the inspections. That's why it's important.
They basically said at a training I went to a couple weeks ago that the state obviously has a leg in with the marijuana, especially retail marijuana establishments, but they basically said, we're not gonna get out there as much as you guys get out there. So we actually are part of a tobacco coalition, and we get out much more often than the FDA or the state does. So that was basically the point of being part of the medical, having regulations, is so we could regulate it more, and then we can set age, we can set, time that they're open, and a lot of other things. So the state does regulate them as well, but they basically admitted to it. They're not gonna get out as much as that we would be able to.
Let's look at the Title V inspector, not from a revenue basis, I understand the point, but from a cost basis. To do that, let's keep in mind that the town does not have a staff attorney, a legal staff, a general counsel in-house. It has an arrangement with a competent law firm, and all, really, of the town's legal requirements are taken care of either with that law firm or perhaps in a highly specialized need via that law firm. Just so, turning now to the Title V, did the Board of Health conduct a comparative cost-benefit analysis of an employee, however compensated by whatever mechanism, and a consulting capable, of course, certified, of course, a Title V inspector, where the analysis included retirement costs, paid vacation, insurances, and other parts of total compensation. And if you did that, could you take us through the thought process that produced the memo of April 4 that we have? But if you didn't do it, why not?
Okay, so first of all, the person would not get any benefits for this position. It's a non-benefited position because we're not doing it on an hourly basis. It's a flat rate. It's a flat fee. So it's a flat fee basis, so there's no hours involved. So they currently wouldn't get any benefits. As far as being an employee of the town, that's to our benefit because from a legal perspective, for the town's liability, we would want that person to be an employee versus a consultant. Under Mass General Law for labor, under the labor laws, they technically wouldn't be able to be a consultant. They would actually have to be an employee under the labor law. It has to meet a three-prong approach. And two of the prongs she would not meet because she would be under the direction of the Board of Health and under she wouldn't be able to make all the decisions, okay? So like if someone needed a variance on a septic, she wouldn't be able to make that decision on her own. So she is under our direction. So that's one of the prongs that she would not meet, which would make her have to be an employee. The second prong is that she would also, it would be something that is extraordinary that the Board of Health doesn't do on a normal basis. For instance, before, we didn't have a hydrogeologist because it wasn't a normal thing that we would have needed in the past when we were doing the analysis of the Southbridge landfill. So that definitely would fall under the consultant position, whereas we, on a normal basis, do Title V. That is our normal regulatory job that we're supposed to inspect and do all these things. So under that term, under that second prong, it would not meet the terms of being an independent contractor kind of consultant under Mass General Law.
Are you then saying that, because it's Mass General Law,
That's law.
all 351 cities and towns must comply, and that would mean that a town, in the Berkshires, 650 people year-round would have to maintain an arrangement like the one you're proposing?
No, I'm proposing the arrangement we have because we're not a town of 550 people. We're a town of 10,000, and in the summertime, a lot more than 10,000. And I would propose that the way this town, for whatever reason, in the past, before I was ever on the Board of Health, things worked out fine by having what they had. I'm just saying, we've never been up to par, okay? I'm trying to bring us into the 21st century so that we can actually really look at things that boards of health should be looking at to, I don't want to say expand. We should be actually doing the right thing, looking at the opioid crisis. We now have a doctor who's phenomenal on our board. We want to get into other areas we haven't been able to really dive into in the past. We've had people that died in this town over overdoses. And I don't know if you guys know about that, but we have had people die in this town. So there needs to be better outreach from our office to serve the public better. And what I'm saying, if 60% of someone's time at this salary rate is spent out in the field, there's no way possible to get all this other stuff done that we have to get done.
I understand the strategic point. What is the backlog profile over time of Title V? How many and how long is the average wait?
We don't have a backlog right now because we actually have the person currently doing it. That's currently doing the job now. The one that I'm proposing is doing the job now. Bree does not do Title V at all.
How is
since
that
she's
person
on
being
board.
paid now?
They're being paid hourly because there's enough money left in the budget to continue
Right,
to
because
pay
of the
that person
difference in
hourly.
salary
Yeah.
that Bree started,
What's the
and the
what is
gap
the
in
hourly
time. we
rate
didn't
that they're
have
being
anything.
paid?
It's paid out of an accrual.
$40.
What is
Being
it?
paid $40.
So you're just trying to continue the status quo into the next fiscal year is what you're trying to do, right?
Till the end of this fiscal year, and then the rate will change. The
Right.
rate will actually wind up probably being less for that person on an hourly basis.
So while we're not talking, not going to be approving from Finance Committee the rate tonight or whatever, but when you talk about we're going to pay her 90% of what the fee,
What the fee is based on.
yeah, and kind of think, well, that's covering our costs and there's just a minimal amount of profit going back. I would challenge you to think that,
From a,
you know,
it's
for
the
every $100 you
administrative
take
costs.
in, you pay her 90, and we got $10 going in the coffers. There's payroll processing time. You mentioned the liability coverage we have. I'm sure she's using some office time and some other overhead type resources that you may not have factored
not
into
really-
some of that. So,
I mean, I was looking at the direct and indirect costs, I think is what you're looking at. So from a direct cost, she's a direct cost, absolutely.
Yep.
The only other direct cost would be the person that processes the permit. Okay, that's the only other direct cost. Indirect costs, I've tried to find out from this town for a while, how do we look at indirect costs in this town? And nobody can explain to me what our indirect costs are. From this building to the building across the street, it's easy if it's the police station, the fire department, they're there in their own building. But I cannot figure out square footage wise in our office what our indirect costs are. That I can't know. She's not going to get any benefits from the town. So to me,
Coverage on that.
there's no cost associated with that. This is a flat fee basis. If this was a federal contract, this would be the best case scenario for the feds because it's a flat rate. You know your cost isn't going to change there. There's no risk to the town by paying it the way we're doing it, and it's going to go into a revolving fund and out of the revolving fund. So that's why there's no line item. It's going to be whatever the money going in, here's the fee, and then that percentage of the fee goes back out to do the job. It's the same way we do it when we actually have a festival on the town common, and we charge permitting fees for, there'll be 20 vendors out there selling food. And I have to get someone there on a Saturday and a Sunday to cover, to go in and do those inspections, to inspect, to make sure people are wearing gloves, the machines aren't dirty, and so forth like that. So that inspector gets 90% of the money, and 10% goes to the town. That's kind of been the rule basis that we've always had. But from a cost-benefit analysis, I would say the cost to the town is actually, there is no cost to the town because the fee is paying for the cost. That's why the 10% is the fee that goes back. The other scenario would be, I know in the past, the plumbing inspector was under the Board of Health, as I was explaining earlier. That person got 90% of the money and 10% went to the town in the past, and that was under the Board of Health. When I moved, and I asked Sean Sahosky, or actually it may have been our interim town manager at the time, to move plumbing out from under the Board of Health because it absolutely, to me, made no sense that plumbing was under the Board of Health, and to move it under the building department, that's when they also had changed the fee structure to accommodate whatever. I wasn't part of that negotiation. But under the Board of Health, we do have the ability to negotiate our own fees and what we pay someone too. So that's actually under Mass General Law as well. But I say that the majority of towns that we looked at, okay, they do have someone separate that does their septic. It's not their primary, it's not their agent that does all that. It's actually another person that does it. So we are kind of the, for a town our size and for all what we have going on in our town, I would say it's somewhat unusual that you have a full-time health agent that would actually be able to do all of that at the same time.
I don't think anyone here is thinking along the lines that the health agent's going to do it. I think the question here is, the person that you've decided is going to do it, what is the appropriate compensation for that job? Because if you don't know what the appropriate compensation is, and we can't make a profit on it, we can only have a small thing to pay administrative costs, then those two factors decide what the fee is going to be charged.
Right.
You can't charge $1,000 and pay that person 90% and get
Absolutely.
$900, and you
No.
can't pay him
No, you're
$200 and we
absolutely
keep $800. The fee that we're going to charge is going to be a
Right,
product
so right
of
now, we're looking
what
at
those
all
two
of the
charges
fees, and
are.
we could tell you what the 10% the town's gonna get. So I don't, have you guys seen that? No, you don't even know, right?
No.
All right, well, maybe that'll help.
But I went online and looked at this current fee schedule that's in there, and some of the fees are $400 or $500 for,
That's rare that they're gonna be that high. That's for like alternative.
see, I don't know that. That's why we
Yeah,
need,
so-
that's why we have to hear from you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the normal system is $200. That includes plan review, which is a couple hours to review it, especially if it is an alternative system, those take longer. The permit, and then the inspection, that's $200. And then the perk test, which comes first, obviously. In our new fee schedule that we're looking to do,
Proposed differently.
we're gonna change it a little bit where the plan review is $200, and then the permit fee and the inspection is $200, because $200 for all three of those things is
Doesn't sound like
not that
Low.
much. So other towns do it this way as well, where the plan review is just a one fee, which would be $200. That also protects us a little bit, because sometimes we review a plan and then we
They change
do the
it?
permit and we get ready and then they just disappear.
And they
for some
don't do the
reason.
perk
We have a
test.
few on my
Yeah.
desk right now that, from 2009, that we took the time to review and then they disappeared.
And we get no
because the
money.
house
I
got
understand.
foreclosed on. So, this would be a plan review fee of $200, and then you get your permit and your inspection. Sometimes there's a few inspections if they have to go back. So that changed it a little bit, and those
So
will change our
there's
numbers.
$400, so 90% of $400 is $360. So the inspector would get $360 and we get $40? And how many hours of work is involved in that $360?
It would all depend, like I said, on the,
An average, what's an average? 4 hours? 2 hours? 8? I don't know.
I would say 2 hours to review the plan and 2 hours for all the inspections and doing the certificate of compliance and stopping in the
So-
office. I'd say 4
So
hours.
is $90 an hour the going rate for someone with those skills?
What about the perk? Isn't that,
Perk's different. Perk, we're doing it on an hourly basis.
Okay.
So the perking would be on an hourly basis.
all right.
I also looked at, there's other towns, you want to say, have someone else or another person that does it, and there's one person that actually does it for quite a few towns. I actually got their pricing, what it would cost us to do it.
That's great,
Right.
that's important.
Right, so-
What was that charge?
Basically, it's the rate that this person would
What
be
is that
getting.
number? What's the number?
To go and ask them now. That was a few years ago that I actually got those rates, because I was looking at,
Was it $90 an hour?
we didn't do it, it's a flat rate. They charge it by a flat rate. They actually charge a flat rate, not by the hour.
You can
In fact, I
impute,
can't.
because you know how long it takes to do it, you can back into the
But-
number.
and-
I'm
well,
just,
I would
that's,
say,
that's,
Bree-
that's our job, that's what we have to figure out.
I understand, but let me explain to you. The majority of people out there are engineers or sanitarian that do it, okay?
Absolutely.
So they usually have a higher degree, whatever, and they do it maybe for multiple towns.
Mm-hmm.
And they do it on a flat rate. They do a plan review for this much. In fact, Charlton is in that situation. So Charlton charges, say, whatever, for a plan review. That person that does the plan review is paid a flat rate. They're not doing it by the hour. It could take them 2 hours, or it could take them 5 hours. And sometimes when you do a plan review, even though Bree is correct, that might take you a couple hours, if I say that this, and this has to change on the plan review, it's got to go back to the engineer to make the changes, and then those changes come back to me. I mean, you can ask
And
Gene
the engineer
Bouban.
charges again?
Pardon me?
And the engineer will charge again?
No,
Goes back.
no, it's part of your flat rate. They have to do all of this in order to do it. But I'm saying every plan is not going to be
So-
slam dunk, it's done.
And
it's
I'm not
2
looking to get in an
hours.
argument, Linda, but how do we set the rate if we don't know what the cost is?
Because we're setting the rate based on other towns. So we looked at surrounding towns around on what their rate structure is. Like I said, we're not going to be the cheapest and we're not going to be the most expensive. Either that, or you could put a line item and saying, give Linda $20,000 a year to have someone do this. But what I'm saying is the risk of doing that line item that way is you're at a risk that year that I have a $20,000 line item to have a person as a stipend do that, I might not bring in $20,000 that year. So what I'm saying is this is the lowest risk. I'm going to say, try it this way. If you don't like it, change it next year.
I don't think
There's
anybody
no way
has
to
a
measure it.
problem with the analysis as to why you chose this route.
Yeah.
I think the problem is we're trying to understand why the 90%. What is this person, their task that they're gonna perform on average might take, you had said, 4 hours. Well, that's $90 an hour. Is that a normal rate?
I would say that based on how we were looking at other towns that have someone else performing this job, that's basically what the going rate is. That they get this type of percentage. I'm not saying that maybe in another town the town takes 20% or 15%. But I would say either that or I have to lower the fees or I could raise the fees so that if the town thinks that, geez, I want to make at least, or the town should at least get 30% or 20%, I would have to raise this fee because I'm not going to be able to hire people for less than that kind of money to do the job. That's what you're going to run the risk at. So when you bid a contract, whether it be the federal government, the state government, or a local municipality, and you bid on a contract, there's also a performance that you need to guarantee that you can perform under those terms and hire people for that rate. And the biggest problem that I've seen across the board is people bid contracts that they can't hire people for that rate, so they have 5 openings. I don't want to be in the situation that we're not the lowest, we're not the highest, we're the average. And in order to pay someone, it's kind of hard to say, oh, it only takes 3 hours to do a plant. That might not be the case every time. There's going to be a time where they're going to be making less money on situations and more money on situations. I'll give you an example. Was it the plumbing? The plumbing inspector in town, when they did I think they just did a transfer of money at the last town meeting, right? That had to do with the hotel. Do you think it took that person that amount of time to do that many inspections for that kind of money? So that's kind of like how you have to say it. In some cases, you're going to win. In some cases, you're going to lose. I think the risk to the town, though, is the least by doing it this way. There's nothing that says that in the future, in a year from now, say we look at these fees and saying, geez, these fees, this is just not enough money, or this isn't right, or, geez, from an administrative point of view, the town should get more money. There's nothing that says that we couldn't change our fees next year to accommodate the town's administrative costs, okay? But I have to make sure that I can find someone to do this job for this amount of money is going to be the problem.
I mean, I guess if the rates are set by independent contractors, then the $90 fee isn't that high. Is it really that high? Because you're talking about people that are building their overhead into their fee. If it's it's a lot for a direct salary, but it's not. If the market's set by people that are doing it on their own, then $90 an hour is not that high. I mean, you pay an IT guy that much, you know.
They're still,
Hypothetical number.
aren't they still considered an
We're not
employee?
talking dollars, we're talking 90%.
They are, they're technically an employee
Without
of the
benefits.
town,
Right.
but they do not get
But they, I would
benefits.
assume they would still deduct the taxes and,
Our town will be deducting the taxes.
yeah. So it's not like they have
yeah.
that overhead.
Yeah.
having
I would
to pay.
actually have to pay this person a lot more if they were truly independent, but like based on the labor law, they really can't be. But they have to be an employee.
But I guess one concern I have is that you are in fact capturing all the indirect costs. I mean, I know you can capture the direct costs, but are you taking into consideration all the indirect costs? Like,
See, that's what I can't get an honest, I
Insurance,
can't get an answer from anybody how to calculate our indirect costs in the town halls. Because this town hall and that town hall aren't gonna have the same indirect costs. Because the heating and the plumbing and everything
Right.
over there is different than over here. And every building actually has different indirect costs. And I don't know if this committee or if the town has been ever tasked with finding out what our indirect costs are from department to department. I don't know. I know what square footage our town, our group handles and our, you know. And when I looked up under, believe me, I did my studying here, guys, for indirect costs and all that stuff. When I was trying to figure out, under the Department of Local Services, Department of Revenue, trying to figure out what the indirect costs are and what the direct costs are, it basically says that trying to figure out your indirect costs, it could be challenging, because you have to look at insurance for the building, you know, blah, blah, blah. You've got a fire suppression system, or you have, you know, whatever. But then you have to look at the square footage that the Board of Health uses versus the rest of the building, okay? You have to look at all the other things,
Well, yeah, there are common areas.
and the common areas and everything else.
Very-
So I don't know, but that might be something that you guys would be interested in taking a gander at, because I sure in heck can't figure that out myself.
Would you please review, I think I just don't understand, I'm sorry.
I can't see
The basis for compensation, is it in effect piecework? That is, if you do 10, you get paid for 10.
exactly.
Okay, if that's the case, is that a perverse incentive? That is, I'm the inspector. If I can rush through a bunch of plans, then I can get paid more. Now, I may be doing a half-baked job, but I'm the inspector. So isn't that a perverse incentive?
No, I don't think we would hire somebody that we felt would be going through plans that, I mean, I
Well, What's the
can't,
review process of the inspector's work?
the person would, you come in to get a permit for your septic system. You say that you want to have a perk. We schedule the perk. We work with the person who's going to go out in the field and do the perk with you. Now they want to do a plan. They bring in, they give us the check for $200 for the plan review. I actually have a time frame of 45 days by law in order to do a plan review. Now, we generally don't have 12 or 15 plans sitting on the desk waiting to be done. We usually have them come in maybe once a week, if that, okay? To do a plan review. But like I said, there's gonna be back and forth between the plan review and the engineer, maybe the homeowner. Sometimes they need a variance because then they're gonna have to get a variance because it doesn't meet the offsets. They're gonna have to send out to the abutters around there, then we're gonna have to hold a hearing. And then that person that did the plan review is going to have to also come to our meeting, okay? And explain to us why we should accept this or not accept this. So it's not, they also do have to go to our meetings, guys. So it's not like they get to do all this work at home, hurry up, rush through this plan, and then poop, off to the next thing.
Well, let's see. I think you just said
It's the same-
maybe once a week. So let's say they
Say
don't,
that maybe once a week we would.
okay, no, I'll take your
Just throw it,
your
spitballing it.
frequency, fine. So let's say they do not take a vacation. That's 52 plans a year, 10% of some figure, and 90%
We
of...
can give you the figures of how many plans we did last year versus this year.
Well, you're the Board of Health Chair. I'm trying to ask you, please hear me out in my question. 10% of some figure and 90% of some figure, and the 10% goes into the revolving fund. 52 times 10% of something is going to produce, you don't know how much money. So it's a phone booth operation. It's not a going concern. It's not a business. To Jim's point, you have no basis of calculation. How can you do it?
Calculating the fee or calculating the 10% versus 90%? What, I don't understand what your question is.
So if you do
Because
$20,000
no,
worth
no
of
one ever,
fees-
just so you know, no one ever questioned this when it was under the plumbing
let's put it
inspector, it
this
was
way.
done this way.
That doesn't,
To
today is today.
To Larry's point, it's a revolving fund, so say the total cost is $20,000 a year.
Yeah,
18,000, 90% goes to the inspector. 2,000 goes into the revolving fund. The revolving fund is supposed to be a fund that regenerates itself. At $2,000 a year, it's gonna take 10 years to cover 1 year worth of expenses.
wait a minute, wait a
No,
minute,
it's-
wait, no,
No?
no.
Money's coming in, the money's
All
being
the
paid
money
out.
goes into the revolving
Money-
fund, and you
it's-
pay the inspector
And
out
then
of
you pay
it.
the inspector.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But the
all the
10
money goes in minus
But we don't,
10%.
we don't fund it up front at all?
No,
No.
10% of
Stand
it just
corrected.
goes directly to the general.
Yeah.
90% of it is in the revolving fund, going in and going out, going in and going
Okay.
out. That's what the revolving fund is.
So what do you,
You're saying the full inspection fee is gonna go to general fund, the general fund's then gonna
No,
put 90?
no,
The
no,
full
no.
fee's
No,
going
go
into the revolving fund.
I got what
Revolving
you
fund is then paying 90% to the inspector. The 10%, does that actually come out of revolving fund, go back to general fund, or does it sit in that
Directly
fund?
to the town is what I heard. Is that right? That's what I wrote down.
I don't know how it actually, that 10% goes into the general, but 10% is going into the general. I don't know if everything goes into the revolving, and then that's a question for Barbara and Leon, because that part, I don't
yeah, if it
know.
is for overhead, I guess
I
it
do-
should
I
find
do
its
now.
way into
I
the
do.
general fund at some point.
I would think so.
Would it be fair to ask you to, if we go forward with this, to ask your Title V inspector to keep track of her hours so that next year, if we're looking at this
I'm
again, we
wicked
can see exactly what she made hourly, to see if that does fall.
Do you guys know what the plumbing inspector or the electrical inspector make hourly? Are they working hourly?
No, but if I look at the plumbing inspector, he gets $50 for inspections, whether it's single-family, two-family. Sometimes that $50
It's
covers
per-
two
that's-
trips.
I think that's per.
Per inspection, yep.
Per
per inspection.
So like if you have 5 sinks, that's per sink, so you know.
And if I'm looking at the fees he's getting, lots of times in here, he's got a single inspection, he gets $50. We're charging anywhere from $75 to $200. So there's a little bit more of a gap between,
What's the town get on that, do you know? So what is the inspection fee based on?
So
he gets
here we go.
$50 in
Single-family
inspection?
home, he gets $50 per inspection. It says he may require 2 inspections, and we are going to, our fee will be $150.
The town is getting $150 and he's getting 50?
He's probably getting 100 if he has to do 2 inspections on a single-family home.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more than the, and And if you only had to do one inspection for that home versus two, then we're getting 2/3 of the revenue
Okay,
of
then
the fee
we
versus
could-
whatever.
we
So
could- we could take a look at
if
that.
I look at the electrical inspector, there's, you know,
Is
the
it-
the gap between what we charge for a fee and what they get is larger than 90/10. And
What-
and
what
I
would
would
you
still
say? Is
argue
it
that, while
20%?
we haven't figured out what those overhead costs are, I wouldn't totally discount those, and we have to get Barbara and Leon to help figure that out to set that structure better. We should do that.
Is the sense that people, that the 10% isn't high enough? Is that what people are feeling, or that they don't agree with the
I think the
arrangement?
sense is that we don't have any idea what this person doing the inspections is making and whether that's market value. That's what we want to know.
Oh, so you want to know, like, if I put this out,
$90 is market value, great, let's pay
Okay,
her what's
mhm.
market value.
I would
So
say it's-
we need to know
Yeah.
what market value is, and then an estimate of how many hours she's working, and I know it's an estimate, but if you look at the cases where she's losing money and the cases where she's gaining money, we could come up with an average, and then if we knew what that hourly rate was, we could compare it.
Well, definitely on a perk, the town will be making a lot more money than because she would be getting $40 an hour, and then based on what we're charging for a perk, the town's making a lot more than 10%.
Why $40 for a perk, $40 an hour for a perk, and possibly $90 an hour for a permit and a permit and an inspection, which maybe that's what the market bears, which is fine with us. It's
Yeah.
just that we don't have that information, so we can't make an educated decision
Yeah.
on whether this is a fair compensation.
If she's working for us now on a
Hourly.
hourly,
I can get you
can
those
you
numbers.
track her hours?
Yeah, we could do that.
It's only been since I started though, so it's only gonna be about 6 weeks worth, but I have obviously have those numbers.
Are we paying her for like travel time or mileage? or-
No.
No. So that's kind of factors into.
And that would be something that you would have to do then if you
I
were going
think
to do it.
Bruce has a
in an
question.
hourly.
Kind of
Bruce has been
analysis,
waiting.
Because there's a disconnect in our minds.
Yeah, I got
About
you.
what's fair and what's reasonable.
54 cents an hour, a mile.
Bruce has a question.
Thank you. Bree, if I understood you correctly, does the 90-10 only apply to plan review?
No, the 90-10 would be for plan review and
Inspections and permit.
inspections and the permit,
How do
yeah.
you get 90-10 on the inspection? You total up the number of hours and then split up based on the hourly rate?
That's what we can't figure out.
We're not doing it on hourly rate, so we were doing it on a fixed basis, on a firm fixed price.
The inspection itself is also fixed?
Everything is on a firm fixed price.
Okay.
So
Except
if
for
you
the perk.
understand firm fixed price contracting,
Right.
Right.
it's actually less risk to the town on a firm
Right.
fixed price contract. Because if you actually had to pay someone by the hour and I'm only still getting $200 and they had to go out there 10 times,
Right.
I'm in the hole now.
Right.
I'm trying to make it so that the town wants 20% of the fee, or if they want to look at it from that, I'm trying to look at it from a perspective that I'm not coming to you in the middle of the year saying, I need more money, opposed to the other way around. Because I figured a revolving fund is the least risk to the town, because really, the fee is supposed to cover your direct costs and whatever the
Anybody is
mysterious
arguing
indirect,
that point.
yeah.
I think everybody agrees with that point.
Yeah.
We just want to make sure the Title V inspector is getting a market rate and not less and not more.
Right, I understand.
It's always easier to go to an employee and say you're getting a raise, and you go to them and say, I'm overpaying you, I'm gonna cut your rate 50%, because I'm paying you too much. Because if we don't get this right, and we pay the person too much, you can't take it away. I mean,
I know.
you just
So,
can't take money away
I-
from people once you give it to them. So all we're looking for is,
I did
what
part
is a
of-
fair way to compensate the person? Regardless of the structure, what's a fair way to
So when I
compensate
looked
the
at
person?
how
Questions like the.
the person that's actually doing it, say for the town of Charlton, Charlton basically has an engineer that does all of their Title V stuff for them. It's
And the
not by the
person that's
agent.
doing ours is an engineer, if
Would
I'm
be
not
willing to
mistaken,
say
isn't she?
no to it or-
Oh, she-
She's an RS,
What's an
a
RS?
registered sanitarian.
Okay.
And the person that does it for Charlton does
Well, we
it
can
for,
take-
say, 8 other towns.
Can we do a quick question on?
Back,
another-
say,
I mean,
4 or
we've
5 years
identified an
ago,
issue that
I
has
got
to
their
more
rates to find
clarification.
out if this town decided to
What
go
about,
that way,
I mean, there-
what would our cost be? I added up at that time
Okay,
what the cost would have been, okay? based on what I knew, how many perks we did that year, how many plan reviews we did that year, and so forth. And I think they were actually structured more like we are going to try to structure it because of going out and doing the inspections. At the time, it would have probably cost the town, just say if that was a line item, and based on that, it would have been about $18,000. And at the time, we had someone who was a full-time agent performing those duties too, and they were spending about a good 60, maybe 70% of their time out in the field. And their salary was at least $65,000 a year. So I didn't feel like, I thought it would have been better to actually have someone
Well,
being
yeah.
paid a lot less money.
That person's doing that, it's costing you $40,000 for your own person to do it.
Yeah,
versus-
so that was kind of like how I started actually going down that road and looking at this kind of
Oh, I
stuff
understand.
from a cost-benefit point of view.
I don't want to belabor the point, but I don't think anybody disagrees with why you're going this route.
Okay.
I think that we agree that that's a very reasonable and probably a most cost-effective route for us to go. What we need to understand is the compensation of the Title V person, and if that's a market rate, given an estimate amount of hours for her to perform these tasks. I think it's that simple, isn't it?
I would say that we could try to do it for some, but every case is going to be different. Like I said, if we're going to look
We have a
at,
history, we have years of history.
yeah, we don't have years of history of knowing how many hours it took people to do it, though. Believe me, we've never tracked someone's hours, unless you want to say our previous full-time person that we had, who spent 70% of their
Yeah,
time
we
out in
can
the
go from
field.
that.
So you could say 70% out of 35 hours a week, how many hours were they spending out in the field? You could figure that, and they were probably getting a salary close to $70,000 a year.
So that
If
was.
they spent 70% of 35 hours, that's 22 hours a week.
Believe me.
That's for one a week? We do one Title V a week, they're gonna spend 22 hours a week on that?
Believe me, I'd say a good 70% of the work was out in the field.
And it was
And-
all on Title V?
I would say maybe 60%, but yeah, I'd say Title V, yeah.
Huh.
Oh, wells maybe too, a little, you could throw a few wells in there.
We might get one plan review a week, but we also have perks and all that type of thing. So I know this week we had 2 perks.
Differently.
Yeah.
So it would be the plan review, the permit, and the inspection that we would be looking for what the market rate is for an hourly rate, and then how is that gonna apply here?
We did interview, just so you know, we interviewed from someone from another town, and all they did was septic. That's all they did for another individual town that was actually looking to actually be in Bree's position. But they lacked all the other experience that we really needed. I didn't want another person that's the only thing they did in the world. But that's what they only did for another town. And they were at a salary rate that was pretty high. And I'd say they wanted this position, so I'd say they were making probably $40,000 a year just doing that for an individual town.
Did you differentiate between the compensation for RSs and engineers?
I'm sorry, RSs and,
Did you did any towns have a differential between a person who was hired who was an RS and a person who was hired who was an engineer?
I don't really, you don't have to be an engineer to do the job, so I'd say that you don't want to pay someone overly than what they need to, because an engineer's going to want more than what I could get an RS to do the job for.
Okay.
And maybe if this person doesn't work out, maybe I will need to put it back out and see who else is out there who'd be interested in doing the job,
How was the person selected?
because they were previously doing it for us. So we actually didn't have to actually go through, that's what they did for us before. And
So,
we kept them on as an employee.
so while we spent a lot of time talking about the compensation structure for the agent, this all starts with
This
more.
is the agent.
Excuse me, for the Title
This
V
is- you-
inspector.
You want to read that?
No. There's a fundamental shift in your focus and your staffing levels for this year from what we've heard before, and that's you want your agent to focus on a lot of the public health issues that were outlined in the memo, whereas in the past you were focused a lot on Title V and maybe not putting as much effort into those other issues, and that's where you
We spent a lot of our time also on the landfill. So I personally spent a lot of my time on the landfill And so did our interim agent spent a lot of time on the landfill and also on testing the houses on McGillicuddy Road and other things. So every time we actually have a lull, just say we have a lull and like nothing is going crazy in town that takes our immediate attention, we have to get done all of this other stuff that we just have been putting on the back burner. And now that we have the opportunity to do that, we really need to do this.
Nobody argues that.
Well, he's
Just a
arguing,
quick
yeah.
couple analysis, like, if our prior employee was making $65,000 a year and she was spending 60% of her time on this.
Yeah.
And you do the math, that's $18.75 an hour she was spending on Title V. And at $40,000 a year, and that's all they did, that's $20 an hour. So we're
Yeah.
struggling with, if this person's getting $90 an hour, why? If the going rate's 20 or 30 or 40, why is this person getting 90? That's what, and maybe they're not getting 90, but that's the
Yeah,
analysis
yeah.
that we need.
Well, I think it's unfair to say that it's only going to take you X amount of hours to do a plan review, not also when they're going to have to come to our nighttime meetings at 7 o'clock or whatever to sit there and wait and everything else, because they're not being paid. They're there because they did the plan review and they have to explain to us why they have to do what they do. So I would say it's somewhat unfair to say that, oh, I can sit there at my desk and do a plan review in so many hours.
No, but you said that our prior employee did this about 60% of the time, making $65,000 a year. If you do the math,
Yeah.
that's $18.75 an hour.
Plus benefits, vacation,
Plus
and everything
benefits,
else.
But we're still not at $90 an hour.
Well, like I said, it's.
Maybe 90 is not the right figure. but
Yeah.
I think we need to know
So
that.
if we actually did it at $40 an hour and saying, okay, it takes, blah, blah, blah amount of time to do it, I could see what the market's going to bear. I will go out there and I will actually see if I could hire someone else to do this for $40 an hour. And I'd say it's going to be difficult to do that because you're talking piecemeal kind of work. This isn't full-time work. This is going to be like, hey, I've got a job for you this week, but in another month I might
What
not.
I think I'm
so.
asking is if you can bring us that analysis. This is what the market bears. Based on our prior employees and the amount of time they've spent, 60% of their time, that means it would come out to this much money an hour. And this is why we think this should be a 90/10.
We can get the rates also of what Charlton is because Charlton's a good example because that person does it for 10 other towns. The risk that you have, okay, and this isn't just that, I'm not saying that individual, but I'm saying other towns that have a person that does it for multiple towns, and there's nothing that would stop this person from doing it either. I just don't think it's their desire to do it. That is what you call drive-by inspections, okay?
We don't want that.
And I don't want that either. And if it ever came down to that, then this whole thing is going to go away and we're going to go in a different direction. But that is a risk that you have when you have somebody that does it for multiple towns and this is their going rate. And believe me, their going rate is, I'm in that range. That's how our
That's the information
permitting
we need.
fee is done. And they're doing it on a line item and not through a revolving fund, is how Charlton does it, I believe. Because I talked to their agent. I'll talk to them again and find out how they do that. But the risk is that we don't want to have someone that's doing it for 50 towns and
Is an RS the minimum requirement to do this job?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
And once the person picks up the request for plan review and inspection, I mean, they just know they have to be done within 45 days, or do you give them more direction than that?
Yeah, the law actually is in Mass General Law that the plan review has to be done. It has to be a completed plan. They do it because they say completed plan, so it kind of gives you a little bit of leeway if you say, oh, it's not completed because you left off this or that, or you left off this or that. A plan review is supposed to be done when it's completed within 45 days.
And
Or otherwise, it's considered okay.
you don't tell this person, I want you to inspect between 10 and 11 o'clock in the
No,
morning?
no.
Anything like that?
No. In fact, we don't really want to tell people when we're going to do things. Well, they do have to be out there with the engineer. So they will actually directly work with the installer or whoever's going to be out there. They'll schedule that and work with those people directly.
And you don't really direct the person's activities to say, these are the things that are most important to us. You rely on the professional qualifications for them to do an adequate job.
When you say, do we direct them, they are under our direction.
They would
So
be as an employee.
They are under our direction, and also there's certain things that they cannot do that we have to do as a board, like for a variance, for instance. Things like that, they don't have the authority to do it, or offsets, only we have the authority to make those decisions. They can't make those decisions. They can make recommendations to us, but they're not allowed to make the decisions. So they are essentially directed under us.
I just want to break in. We do have other people waiting for us. I don't know if you want to come
All right.
back or wait or what. I don't
Well,
think.
what I could
it's
do
the
is-
library. I don't think they'll be too long.
I'm pretty
I don't know.
much.
Becky's given us a.
Can I just also make a clarification to Bruce's point when, and to Karen's both, when you do your analysis of the different towns and you get some sort of a basis, please differentiate between an RS position and an engineer position.
Most towns don't hire engineers to do this.
We
just
don't
so
know
you
that. I mean, okay, but I just want to differentiate that, please.
Actually, there.
Because you're not talking oranges to oranges at that point.
No, and you don't actually have to be an engineer or an RS to actually do
No,
this
but I'm
job.
talking when you're looking at the differences in the salary, Linda, because if you have an engineer, they're going to be paying more.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we have an RS at this position, so
Yeah.
you're not going to pay her at an engineer rate is the point that I think Bruce was trying to make.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so you guys, I will, if you want me to leave you any of this, I can. I'll just say this really quick, okay, because I know you want to move on. But since
Yeah, well,
this
it's
is
just, you know,
my
we
one-
do have people
my-
waiting.
My
for-
one great chance.
Oh, you can always come back.
Or you can email it.
Or,
So,
really? That's it?
so I'll just, you guys, I
Famous last
Yes.
words.
have questions in the peanut gallery there. So under Mass General Law, Chapter 111, Section 27, this is just on the bottom of it, and I'll send you guys a copy of this.
Yeah.
It says, this has to do with the organization of our board and so forth. But on the bottom, it says, this is the Board of Health, may employ the necessary officers, agents, and assistants to execute the health laws and its regulations. It may fix the salary or other compensation of such physician and its clerks and other agents and assistants. So this person would be an agent for us doing that job. So that's under Mass General Law, Chapter 111, Section 27. And then under one other thing, this has to do with the Department of Local Services, Department of Revenue. Real quick, guys, and then you guys will be on. A fee is an amount charged to a service to individuals who benefit from it. A fee may be imposed when a local government provides a particular service such as a police detail, issues a permit or license, or offers a benefit like a recreation program. Municipalities can establish fees as long as they meet the three-prong test set out. Emerson College versus Boston, 1984. A fee must be charged for a particular service that benefits the party paying the fee in a manner not shared by other members of society. In other words, a fee may not be charged for general services that are mandatory or supplied to the public at large, such as core education and police protection. A fee must be paid by choice. That is, the person paying the fee must have the opinion of not using the service and thereby avoiding the charge. It follows that the service can be withheld from the individuals who refuse to pay. 3, a fee must be collected not to raise revenues per se, but to compensate the government entity for its expense in providing the service. This has been interpreted to mean that a fee cannot exceed the cost to provide the service. So that's when you guys figure out what the indirect costs are. That's when I could probably also have a better idea of how to set the fee, because I do know what the direct costs are. Okay?
Right.
So Kathy, well, you suggested she can come back and address these. As I look at her budget, for the Board of Health, there's a salary line for the agent position, there's a salary line for the admin position, there's a salary line for the inspector.
Right.
But
Inspector's
The
full-time.
Title V inspector that you're talking about, and so what you read says you're gonna set your own fees, we don't get to do that. You'll set the salaries for the people you hire. I don't see how the Title V inspector and how you're setting it up comes back through us in this budget if you do it through the revolving fund and do that
Correct.
separately there, so.
But we do approve
It'd be
the,
a warrant article.
It's a warrant.
We approved they have a revolving fund already.
Okay,
Yeah.
just through the warrant.
no,
article.
that
Okay,
process
I
has
got-
changed with the new law.
We also, just one other person that, we actually have a person that you guys might not know. We actually have another person that inspects all of the beaches during the season, and they're paid through that revolving fund.
I think I knew that, yeah.
Yeah, they're paid through that revolving fund, so.
We're talking about setting up a separate one just for this purpose,
It
right?
would make, excuse me. That would be up to Barbara and Leon. I mean, whatever, it doesn't make any difference to me how it's set up. It would probably make the most sense and probably the cleanest way to have it as its own individual
Yeah.
one,
Right,
okay?
okay.
All right, so,
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for coming
Thank
in.
you.
Now we'll move on to books.
I will send you guys, I'll send you
sure,
You want to
all
send it to Mike?
the different areas.
yeah,
Okay,
you can send them to me or to everyone, it's fine, thank you.
It might answer some of the questions.
yeah.
Which one?
I hope we can talk about books instead of leaking buildings.
Whatever your desires. We had our trustees meeting just before this, so I brought my own garage.
It's called, what do they call them now, your squad?
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Hi, Becky. Would you mind just introducing, you're gonna, right?
You're gonna
Because I
tell
gotta
us
write
every-
everybody's
who everybody is.
I
names.
can have them introduce themselves.
Yes, that would be great.
Joyce, you want up? Grab a chair. Becky, you want to start?
Becky Saluza?
Steve Mullen, one of the trustees.
Jackie Belisle, Chair of the Trustees.
Becky Plimpton, Library Director.
Can I, because I didn't write that quickly, can I just ask you, Jackie, your last name again?
Belisle, B-E-L-I-S-L-E.
And I'm sorry if I should know this and I don't. Thank you, I'll get everybody else.
Jackie's our chairperson as well.
Right,
Oh, okay.
okay.
Do you know all of us, by the way?
I don't.
We have-
know
maybe
most
we-
of you.
We could do some quick intros, because we have new people.
Mike Hager.
Karen Davis.
Mike Serio?
Kathy Neal?
Jim Waddick?
Joni Light.
Larry Morrison.
Bruce Boyson.
All right, so why don't we start with the library and then go to the building? We'd rather hear about things you're doing than leaking whatever. You always seem to have something, all right?
We do have stuff going on, that's for sure. As far as the budget's concerned, I don't think in any of the lines there's anything too, too big of a difference from the previous year. I know you want to talk about the budget later. The biggest change, I mean, the building later, but the biggest change is the electrical that was
Oh, they taken
now.
out.
Yeah. And aside from that, it's really just small changes, either small increases in contracts or something like that. I will say that, I know most of you already know this, but for those that are new, the library materials budget, that number is actually based on a figure that's required by the state of 19% of the total budget. So that's how that figure comes about.
And does that necessarily include books or just materials in general?
It's
I mean,
material-
like,
It's materials in,
Audiobooks
yeah,
or
yeah. So
that
it's materials in general. It's basically anything that the public can check out and use.
oh, okay, so that would
Whether-
include videos too?
Yep.
Oh.
It includes ebooks, so
Pretty much anything that circulates.
anything that circulates.
Anything, oh, okay.
When you say 19% of the library budget, 19% wouldn't be the town
No.
budget. That would be a different budget. That's my-
That'd be great.
I think they need another building
If
if
you
it
want
was
to give us
that.
that much money, we would take it.
I think you
All right.
need a new building if you
Yeah.
spent that much money.
Becky, can you just go over the staff again? How are you doing with your staff and the hours that?
So, our current staffing, we have,
The last increase in staffing we got was the children's library assistant position.
Part-time, right?
Part-time, right. And so that enabled us to open up the downstairs significantly more hours. It's definitely not enough to open it fully for downstairs. So if the library is open 9 hours in the day, it's probably staffed about 7, which is a lot better than it used to be. I would say going forward, one of the biggest issues that we have is our technology, because, as you know, the town doesn't have a technology person. What we are lucky to have is Dina Karen, who has served kind of as our technology person. She is going to school to get her certification for technology, library technology. And so when you look under that tuition reimbursement, that's actually some reimbursement for her tuition costs. And so we're relying heavily upon her at the moment to do a lot of the things that we need, whether it's investigating new event keeper software, which will schedule the meeting rooms, provide online registration for programs, investigating options for that type of thing, in addition to any of the upgrades to our public networks and our network with CW Mars. So that software changes twice a year and requires upgrades to be done.
Help me understand usage at a library there, because if I sit and look at my kids who are, now in the 20s or whatever, to them it's, I don't need to go to the library to get a reference material, whatever else. I got my phone, I just look it up on Google, I got the answer. People taking ebooks on the Kindles versus having to go to the library and take a book. So how you gauge the amount of usage of the materials you have over there by people in town, and is it growing, remaining steady, declining?
We keep more statistics than you would ever want to know. So.
I'll take the highlights.
But I'll give you the highlights. So circulation of materials has been pretty steady. The types of materials that circulate has changed. So while our physical materials of books have gone down slightly for adults, the increase in ebook circulation has skyrocketed. So it's not that people are using the library less, it's that they're using it differently. In addition, I would say that we have more programs and more people walking through our doors than we ever did before. And so the library is being used more as a community center, as a place to attend programs, to meet up with people. We have tutors that use the library after school for students. And so it's definitely not an empty building filled with books.
And the programs you're talking about, are those programs put on by the library or put on by others who are using the library as a meeting space?
No, they're programs that are put on by the library. We do about 400 programs a year between adults and kids and teens. Programs that are run by other organizations are usually just meetings, that they use the meeting space downstairs. Occasionally we have to move a meeting to someplace else. So last night, for example, I don't know if you saw Ted Reinstein was here, and we had to do it in this hall because our meeting room only fits about 35 people comfortably, and we had about 65. Oh. So they're well attended as well.
Other questions? Larry?
I'd just like to make the observation that I happen to be a library patron at least once a week year-round, sometimes twice, 3 times a week. And invariably, the staff are very forthcoming. They're eager to help, whether it's, I don't understand where a book is, as simple as that, or some sort of, to me, pretty complex research. And they're really eager and competent. I find, as a patron, and I don't generally like to sit in an official capacity and speak for little old me, but this time I will, because I think my experience is typical of patrons. So it's really my voice, but I think hundreds or thousands for whom I'm making this observation. So as they say down under, good on you.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you very much.
Joni, one of the other things that we have recently been talking about is the possibility of a part-time programming person. Because we do hundreds of programs a year, it's becoming extremely difficult for, right now, that duty is split up between about 5 people. And as you know, when you have too many cooks in the kitchen, it can get complicated. And so to be able to have someone who on a part-time basis might be able to put those programs together.
Now, is this something that you have already proposed?
It's not. It's actually something that came up when we did our strategic planning meetings. And so it's that because programs were such a big part of what people loved about the library, about the use of the library as a community space, it became clear that if we were going to expand upon that, then we would probably need to have somebody that was responsible for just that.
So you're planning on doing that then?
Yes, I think
Yeah.
we'll probably propose something to Personnel Committee at some
And
point.
it would have to go to personnel. Good. But not in this fiscal year.
No, not in this fiscal year.
It's good that you have the need, though, really. Now, and on that, since we have, I think well, I don't know if we have a facilities person now, but you have custodians?
We do.
Yep. So that's working out for you, because I know you were really kind of doing double and triple duty there for
Yeah.
sometimes,
It's true.
often.
Are we shifting to the building?
Oh, I guess so, but I guess I was looking at it from a staffing perspective, and
Oh,
from
yeah.
Becky's perspective, if she's able to spend more time, perhaps, walking around the corridors and making sure everyone has their slips. You know what I mean?
Their slips?
I was thinking of a detention, person in school. Are you reading your book?
Did you check out that book?
You know what I mean.
So, I don't have to take the trash out, so that's a plus.
Yeah, okay.
Although right now I think staff they were doing some of it. In any case, I still spend a significant amount of my time on the building. When Dan was here and when he wasn't here, either way, because I'm in the building more than anybody else, and there are things that happen, unfortunately, sometimes on a weekly, maybe daily basis, that need to be addressed. They need to be addressed quickly. So last month we had our water heater burst and flow water down the stairs and into the children's room. And that was something that, needed to have attention right away. Things like that pop up. So we're also in the process of looking at space planning for our main floor, much like we did in the children's department 5 years ago.
I'm sorry, what is it for?
Space planning for the main floor.
Oh, for the main floor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the capital budget
right, so there's money
has that in it.
in there for furnishings.
And I think the trustees are adding in some money, right?
Right, so we're in the trustees have hired the space planner, who has come and done the initial evaluation and has given us a first version of a floor plan. And then we will be getting a budget and looking at individual furnishings for what will happen. It's really exactly the same thing that we did with the children's room, as far as using existing space in a better way.
Because it pretty much is as it was when it was built 30 or whatever
Right.
years ago, right?
It's, some of the tables and chairs are 1989-ish.
Yeah. Oh.
So you're still spending a fair amount of time on the building itself?
Yeah, actually, you guys might want to, I don't know if you want to chime in about that, but half of my report to them monthly is probably about the building.
Do you get the, well, of course you can't now, I realize we don't have a facilities person, but, I mean, this is being flowed through this office, right? Like, they're aware of this,
Yes.
right?
I think when I know that Leon is planning on having a meeting of department heads to talk about the facilities manager position. And to be honest, what I need from that person is probably very different from what other departments may need from that person. And so I think, to be able to talk about what it is that we really need, like I need somebody who can write an RFP, I need somebody who can, have a building maintenance schedule made up. Those are the kind of big picture things that I need help with. And other departments may not need that. Other departments may just need, them to source out, cleaning supplies or something, I don't know, but.
Okay. Any other questions on on either the building or the library programs budget? Are you fully staffed now? You don't have any vacancies?
We don't currently have any, although we're anticipating some.
Oh.
We've had one person give me a year's warning on retirement.
A year,
So,
huh?
yeah, so I have a little time to prepare for that.
Okay.
We have a couple of part-time people that are leaving. One is now a part-time firefighter for the town of Sturbridge, and so he'll be leaving us shortly. And we have another part-time person who will be leaving after the summer.
Oh, okay.
But I think we're at 16 employees.
16 employees, oh, wow. That includes part-time and full-time?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Any other questions? Wow, well, thank you for coming in.
There's a few more minutes than 3, but not that bad.
No, not at all.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who has the library? Who's responsible for, oh, Jared. Jared has the library, right?
Oh. Barbara said she came up with a lesser amount. I don't know. A lesser. Oh.
Well, it's a shame that she's still spending a lot
So,
of time on the.
Who had library? Oh, are we ready to vote it?
Yeah, so I make a motion that we approve the budget as is for the library.
Well, we actually do it by line by line. Well, there's not
Hey,
that many.
I'm taking notes, Karen. Would you like to take them?
Let's see, where are we here? What line number? Okay,
Oh, you go to the same spot I do. I'll help you.
we could go to the, we could go to the building first, which is line 60.
Do you wanna?
Line which?
okay.
60?
Line 60?
There's no, I don't know, because they're not numbered.
It's this,
It's the, yeah, the,
So she's telling me she's, motion will be, recommend the town meeting, line 60, library purchases services.
Okay, so, correct me if I'm wrong.
I know, you're new.
So I'm motioning that we recommend to the town to approve line 60 for purchases of services in the amount of $21,895.
Yes, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? What do we have tonight? 8-0. Okay. And then the supplies? Line
Okay, I make
61.
a motion that we recommend to the town to approve the figure for $1,550 for supplies for the library.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. And then we would move to line, well, we're not doing personnel, 122 for purchases, for the actual operation of the library. We've been skipping over the salaries for now.
Yes.
What line is it?
Line 122?
Line number what?
122?
122. So I make a motion that we recommend to the town to approve line 122 in the amount of 23,580 for purchase and supplies, purchase and services for the library.
Is there a second, Mr. Waddick?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? 0. Oh, jeez, that's 4. Next is the supplies, line 123. Oops.
Gotta do a lot of these, huh?
Yeah, you do. We put you to work here.
Make a motion that the town approve line number 122 in the amount of 3,500 for supplies for the library.
123.
I'm sorry, 123, thank you, John.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor? 8-0. Okay. Line 124.
I make a motion that the town approve line 124 in the amount of $96,533 for library materials.
Is there a second?
Second.
Uh,
Bruce beat me.
Bruce beat you, okay. Any discussion? All in favor? 8-0. And last but not
Make
least,
a motion that the town approve line number 125 in the amount of $2,565 for other charges for the library.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor? 8-0. Okay, good, we're done with that one.
Do we
Mike,
want to do Board of
Do you
Health?
want to do Board of Health, or are we ready for that?
Nothing we talked about affects their budget, so,
That's true.
I agree.
What pages is that on?
Board of Health.
All right,
Which is line 103. Are you going to do the landfill as well, Mike?
what's that?
We didn't talk about that, the landfill as well?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
So Board of Health is line 104.
okay.
104.
So in the amount of 4471 for purchase of services for Board of Health.
Is there a second? Jim, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, 8-0.
I'll move the amount of 2625 for line 105 supplies.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? 8-0.
The amount of 1815 for line 106, other charges.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor? 8-0.
And the community health
6.
is, move the amount to 4,000 for line 107, which is actually a nurse now. It's not, used to be money that went to Harrington, and
Right,
that
it's been
doesn't-
a few years now. I
been a
think
few
that
years
it's been
since it
nurse.
happened. And
It's like
they-
a public health nurse though, right?
Right, yeah. And they don't usually spend that much money.
Yeah, like in 17, it was 600. Isn't, it's as needed, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was a TB outbreak or
Right.
TB cases or, they don't even do, they used to do flu clinics, but
Oh, yeah, they did.
now the CVS does
All
it
the
for
All the.
the senior
drugstores do
center
it,
and for
yeah.
other people, and it's covered by insurance, so there's really not much point.
I know, they even ask you at the pharmacy, do you want this and this?
So then what else is the community?
Second.
Is there a
Now we
second?
can
Oh,
get to
go ahead.
discussion.
You're right, you're right.
Thank you. We would have forgotten.
So, I'm sorry, so you're saying
It's for public health,
There was a.
But they've
she's-
only, no, I know all that, but they've only spent 600 of it so far?
2007,
Right.
fiscal 2017. I don't know what they've spent in 18.
Okay.
Somebody's here.
It seems awfully low.
But my question is, what is it for? I mean, what are the things that it's available for besides
Well,
Oh.
flu shots?
Basically, it used to be for flu shots, now there was a TB case is the wild card, tuberculosis.
Do they go to the senior center and do anything there if it's?
They used to, but they're not,
I don't think
because
they
they're not
do
doing
now.
flu shots anymore. I mean, CVS is doing it, or someone else, Rite Aid is doing it. They don't really need to
Is
do
it
that.
for any, like, outbreak of a communicable disease?
exactly.
Like even if there was, for example,
TB?
chicken pox or
If there was like an epidemic, yeah.
some sort of, yeah.
Something that the town-wide had to be concerned about,
Mm.
So does the balance go into free cash, whatever doesn't?
Yes.
whatever it is. it-
Yes. I think that's been 4,000 for years
It
and
was
years.
4,000 when it went to
When it went to
Harrington.
the hospital,
Yeah,
yeah. And I
Harrington
think they
used
were
to
gonna
do it.
jump it quite a bit. I think that's when we switched.
Well, they got out, I think they kind of got out of the business of doing
No,
that
maybe that was
kind of
it.
town-based
Remember,
work.
Jim? Did they get out of the business or, yeah,
I'm not familiar with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I
It was a
remember it.
few
but I-
years ago,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was quite a few years ago now. Yeah. Any other discussion on that line item? All in favor?
Might have had something to do with VNA and they moved on with,
Right,
Overlook.
that's true.
They went to Overlook,
They
I
don't
think.
have inspections
That's
and
right.
testing,
We could also do the landfill, which I believe was pretty much level funded, except for the electricity costs went down, obviously.
What number is that?
right? Line
101.
101.
Oh. backwards.
So it moved the amount of 154,160 for line 101 purchase services.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
And we moved the amount of, let's see, for line 102, it's 9,270.
Is there a second?
Second.
Jim, okay.
That's for supplies, okay.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, 8-0.
Who seconded that?
I wrote down Jim. He was
Okay, okay.
just a touch sooner than Bruce.
Is inspections and testing part of it, swimming pools, that sort of?
Yes.
So
yeah.
do you want to do that one too?
Well, that's part of the Board of Health. It's not part of landfill has their own
Right.
paperwork stuff.
You mean line 108?
Yeah.
We could probably do that then. too.
Oh, you're right, I think is that the right one, though? Let's see, is that that's the plumbing.
Let me see.
It's kind of confusing, because there used to be there used to be inspections, and they're both, okay, that's the health inspector, I think, you're right. 108,
So is it?
46119, yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Let me look at their detail.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it
That's a
is.
line item, isn't it? Yeah, that's
So
right.
Yes,
that is one of those
yes,
it's
it's the
flat,
third
though,
line in the
isn't it?
detail.
It's flat.
salary line items. I thought we were holding all those into.
Yeah,
one
that is just
discussion.
salary.
Is it a flat, though?
No,
No,
that
it's
person's a
it's
regular
it's a
employee.
salary,
Okay,
it's a
okay.
full-time
Yeah.
person, so yeah, maybe we should.
I think it's
hold off
bunched
on
together differently in the
Hold it.
detail. Yeah, we should hold that off.
that. Yeah, it's the third line.
Yeah,
Years ago, I think it was a stipend, but now it's a salary
yeah.
position.
Yeah, it used to be a stipend. Yeah. There are a few others that I was going through today. If we still have a little time. Oh, about, this is fairly random, the nursery school in 8 Brookfield Road, line 64 and 65. I don't recall who had them, but the nursery school, we generally give a certain amount per year. And the last couple of years, I think it's been 2,000. I think actually that 5,300 there was something special. I don't think that was the original budget,
Right.
actually.
It's
I think
been-
we had added through an RFT
And-
perhaps.
And Mike, you looked up something last year for us, I think the original agreement or something.
The memo.
The memo of understanding.
Yeah,
What we were responsible for.
right.
Yeah.
Anything over 500, they're supposed to come to us. You know, we own the building, so.
Yes, it is our
Um,
building.
But they do contribute a lot of sweat equity to the upkeep, and they do fundraising, so.
Yes, I still remember.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
It was fun, but it's good old days. Anybody want to make that motion? I forget whose one that is, to be
I'll
honest.
make a motion.
ahead.
You
No,
want,
no, you do it.
I'll make a motion that we recommend town meeting, line 64, for the nursery school purchase of services in the amount of $2,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Tony got it.
Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor?
What one was that?
It was line 64. And that's, and then 8 Brookfield Road, that is, actually, it's down from FY '18 at $200. It just basically, I think, gives whatever basic money we have to put into that building. It's empty right now, it's not being used.
And there's no discussion on it, like they
Well,
wanted
there was
to-
I believe there was a study on what needed to be done and how much it would cost to bring it up, even just a code, much less a particular use, so I don't recall how much it was, but I
Could've
think it was
asked
quite a
Greg, I
bit.
guess. Yeah, yeah.
That would probably become under capital and not.
And I know he
budget.
shut off the water and stuff, right? Greg?
Yes, because that was one year that they had not, and the heating bills were,
Yeah.
well, astronomical for an empty building, put it that way. Yeah, so they did shut off the water finally.
This is $1,300 for repairs.
Yeah, I think it's just, if something breaks down or window
Isn't-
breaks,
It's
just,
I want to say it's just oil, I thought.
No, no, they don't
it's
have to
not?
eat.
It's just, okay.
it's just if something happens that they need to repair.
I wonder if it's,
I mean, in 17, they only spent $133.
So if they drain the pipes, they're not going to have an issue.
And again, it
Right,
would
I
go back
remember
into.
Greg
the
did
general
that.
fund. Yeah.
It's just a shame that there's no, I'm sure someone's looking at it, Gene, or somebody must be looking at it to do something, because how many studies, we've had at least 2 studies on that thing.
Well, I think they considered it for cable or
The
or a community
cable,
center. or-
And then, yeah, when Lynn was in recreation, she wanted to
Oh,
use
right.
it for some sort of
That's right. she did.
yoga or something.
Is there any type of environmental hazard associated
Well,
with that building?
yes, I think
I
there
think
could
it has
be.
asbestos, right?
Because it was a fire station before.
I mean, Mass Motion was there for a short time, and then they left, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's
Well,
been
it's
in
been
it
various
since then.
uses since the fire department was there. With the superintendent's office.
Wow.
Wasn't it the Lions
The
Club for a while?
Lions, yeah.
Yes. So, and I don't know if they've tried to rent it since, because I think it just needs some basic work that would cost money. So, anyone want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion that we recommend to town meeting to approve for 8 Brookfield Road purchase of services in the amount, line 65, in the amount of $1,300.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor? 0. There was another one. Find it.
Sealers of weights and measures, did we do that already?
Which one?
Sealers, weights and measures? Isn't that an easy flat? One of them's a
we did.
flat.
I thought
We did do
that.
it? Okay.
Oh, well, I didn't check that off.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
We did it on
Yeah, I
329.
didn't check. Okay.
Um,
Did you want to do historical commission?
Yeah, where is that?
Line 133.
Oh, okay. Yes, I forgot to call Barbara Search, but Barbara thought that what they were doing with that increase is purchasing some sort of marker or plaque for certain historical buildings so that people would know the historical significance of them.
I didn't think we had any. I thought Public House was the only
Well,
one
no, I
on
mean,
the
not
register.
necessarily on the registry, but of some historical significance to Sturbridge.
Oh,
Yeah, there's one on this building. in the
Yeah,
back.
there's one on this building,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
there's
thought-
certain buildings, like perhaps the mills, I mean, I don't know which ones they're thinking of, but I think although they aren't on the state registry, they have some significance to the town of Sturbridge.
Right.
So that's what I believe the increase is for. So if anyone would like to move, we actually have 3 lines here.
so I'll make a motion to accept line 133 in the amount of $800.
Is there a second? Discussion? All in favor? 0.
And I'll make a motion to accept line 134 in the amount of $200.
Okay, is there a second? Who's got it? 134. Any discussion? All in favor?
And for other charges on line 135, make a motion to accept line 135 for $200.
Second? Anyone? Karen? Any discussion? All in favor? 8-0. Okay.
What about town council? Line 23?
Twenty-three.
23.
Well, I don't know, I mean, didn't we just approve an increase and now, so is 100 is going to be enough? I don't know. I know somebody has that, though. I don't. You have this stuff, Jim? I know,
You're going to have Leon come in, right?
Yeah, he
So
is coming in.
he
He's
can
either-
Talk to us.
he and Barbara are coming in either, well, she had to check his schedule, but possibly next Thursday. I don't want to say, but I think I'd rather hold off.
Town council is Jared.
You're away, right? Yeah, I couldn't remember which week it was.
Yes, next week, Barbara's, most of mine are actually.
Our Barbara?
Yeah. Because I have.
Yeah, well, she can talk.
I just didn't know if I needed to be here. I
Okay,
talked to her briefly. and,
Right. let's see what else we could do.
I didn't really see anything else.
Oh, what about economic development? It's fairly short money, 1,600.
Oh, well, but is that considered a,
What's the line item, Kathy?
Hmm?
What's the line?
Oh, 47.
So
that's just for supplies though, right?
Yes, that's not
Because-
his
yeah,
salary. It's just the,
Because he's STA, right?
yeah, we'll have STA at some point. I know I signed that to somebody. We should have STA come in and hopefully Kevin will come too.
Check that one.
So do you want to hold on economic development, or do you want to vote it? Whoever has it, would you rather, I'm just asking. I don't know.
That's Jared also.
SDA is Jared.
All
Right.
right, okay, well, we'll hold off then.
I think that's part of the overall pick. It's
It is.
small money, but how does it fit in the overall discussion?
Let's see. Oh, I know what, there was one that I was thinking of, was, some are pretty much fixed rates, or fixed, is, the debt service, principal and
Oh, yeah.
interest, which is lines, starts at 136.
Last-
I mean, there's nothing new, so these are just things that are continuing. I think, well, though, short-term interest might, no, that was 10,000 last year. Would anybody
Well,
like
if it's
to,
going to change, we'll just have to move on.
I don't think it would.
So are you going to do, I'm sorry, you're going to do,
Oh, that's Karen, so she'll do.
oh, okay.
I make a motion that we recommend the town to approve line 136 in the amount of $918,000 for Burgess Elementary project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? That's for the renovation in addition, you might remember. All in favor? Okay. You want to do the next?
Yeah, I make a motion that we recommend that the town to approve line number 137 in the amount of $176,000 for town hall.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Yep.
I'm gonna make a recommendation that we approve line number 138, the amount of $10,000 for short-term interest.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay.
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve line number 139 in the amount of $371,269 for Burgess Elementary School.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? 8-0.
And I make a recommendation that we approve line number, make a motion that we approve line number 140 in the amount of $67,240 for town hall interest.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay.
So we paid off the high school, is that all?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's
Wow.
done. I think that was a year or two ago.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was like, we had an off number that we had to,
In fact, I think
Vote
for a couple
on,
years, and I
right?
don't know if we still are, we were actually getting money back from the state. Because somehow the way the debt was set up.
Okay.
But no, that is done. That was, well, it opened in '02,
Yeah, so it's been 16 years. 15
but I don't know
years.
when we
Yeah.
started, I mean, it was under
didn't-
construction. We weren't
Right, we
paid a
didn't
little
start
bit.
right away, yeah.
Yeah, so
Right.
I don't know.
Sewer debt comes through as warrant articles?
Yes, for the water and sewer, yep.
So we have the two chiefs next Tuesday, huh?
Yes, we have police and fire next Tuesday. And then Thursday, I sent the agenda to Lynn, but I haven't sent it out, because I knew that she was busy with the town election, so I wanted to get it out.
oh yeah, is that next
That's Monday.
Tuesday? Oh, it's Monday.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Well, now's a good time to stop. We don't have minutes.
Is there any other feedback that you guys want me to bring back to the Board of Health? Like, it seems like some people were concerned about the arrangement, the split with the town and the 90-10 versus 80-20, or the fee structure.
Yeah,
That's the big question. We just want to make sure she's getting compensated, not too much, not too little.
well, and the person's rate too, but I think
it's
that's
that
what
hard to do the math. I mean, she gave us a couple of examples
yeah.
of what's been done.
Percentages don't mean anything until you apply them to a figure.
Right, exactly.
Just, you know.
I think when you do a fixed price kind of contract, it's like when someone, replaces a starter on your car. The car dealer's supposed to charge you for half an hour, because that's what it's supposed to take, even if it takes them
Right.
an hour and a half, it's sort of like, usually if the guy's really good, he'll do it in 15 minutes. and
Right.
So,
So they get extra money, you're right.
right, so the really good mechanics are the ones that can
Right.
bill 15 hours a day, and they're working 8 hours.
And they're draining your oil while they're doing the brakes. so they're not
Exactly,
doing-
yeah.
They're not doing them consecutively, they're doing them
Right.
concurrently.
Yeah, so there's gonna be some inequity in that not everyone's gonna, some people are gonna get overcharged and some people are gonna undercharge because there'll be some complications, so.
Well, exactly.
But that wasn't the issue. The issue is
It's still the
the
flat,
average amount of time that it takes to do these services. And I can't imagine they can't come up with an average. We've been doing these services for
well, forever.
forever.
And if we know what the rate should be to pay the individual, then we can
Right.
establish the overall rate
Right.
to be,
But
Right, an average.
so that we comply with the state
probably it's
regulations.
different if the people who are setting, if he's basing it off of Charlton and they're using a independent contractor,
But they're using an engineer, to Joni's point.
well, and that too, but they also may be using someone
She didn't say that, though,
basically
right?
billing for overhead for direct and indirect,
Yeah,
you know?
that's the other thing. Even after this person does things,
Yeah.
the Board of Health is doing other things. She didn't, if there's a variance that needs, that's all the indirect costs.
There are, yeah, I
don't
am
think
worried
she's
that they're
giving
getting all
enough
those indirect
percentage to
costs.
the indirect cost.
I mean, she was saying, oh,
Yeah.
it's just
I
very
think she-
easy to print out the permit, which is true, but there are others. I mean,
Yeah.
there's meetings, like you said, if you have to go to,
I think she may be being too conservative about not overcharging the people.
yeah,
And then not over, like, basically, there's a I mean, there's case law that says you can't charge people for more than the service costs, but I think you can charge indirect.
But you have to be able to capture those indirect costs, and I think those.
It's not just the
They
fee
has-
we're gonna
they
pay
has
to the
to be
person doing the work. There's a
verifiable.
lot of town hall, a lot of other overhead and indirects. I don't think, she said she can't come
But
up with the
but in-
numbers and
but if you-
calculate them, but
It's very hard to do,
There's a-
I mean, if you're in a business like.
can't do the math. You can at least assign some dollar value to it more than just a 10%.
Right, but
Make
if
an
you're,
argument to say what your line of, you make a good faith effort
Right.
to define,
Which
you
I don't
did,
think
now if it
has
was
been
incorrect,
done.
but you did, you made a good faith effort.
That's the sense, though. It doesn't seem like there's been any real mathematical analysis or thought that's gone into this 90/10.
well, I think part of it is there isn't a lot of data because it was done by a salaried person in the past, so he didn't keep,
Right.
he didn't keep track of like when she went out to do this inspection, you know, whether, how far it took her to drive there, you know, what, how long. So there's
Except
no-
for the fact that they said she spent 60% of her time doing these.
Which,
If you just take her salary and
Right.
divide it by 52, divide
Go
by 40.
back and see how many we did last year and divide the number
But I
we
think
I
it's-
performed
think you
into the
could come
amount of
up
money.
with some sort of
but I,
good faith.
but I think there are also, if you look at like the building permits, there were 200 4 years ago, now they're 800 or something. So, I mean, it's not, it's a pretty lumpy number.
Which is a really good argument for why she wants to do it this way. And I personally think it's a great way to do it. It makes sense. It makes fiscal sense. And we're not paying for somebody at an hourly rate who might not be doing work.
Just sitting
And like I
around.
said, I don't think anybody disagrees with doing this approach. We just want to understand the 90/10 and want some data to support it, not just, I don't know what indirect costs are. We'll find it out.
There must be some, it seems like the Division of Local Services would have something
I think it's,
on that.
But we don't
I
even
think-
handle
You,
it.
you can figure
building-
that
the building
out, though. I mean,
inspector just went
an
through his fee
accountant or a
schedule, trying to
CPA
figure
should
out
be
how
able
much
to
time
tell
is
you,
spent
because,
on
you know,
doing
if I
inspections
write
and
off
how
some of
much-
my house, for example,
There's another
for my
part.
you do
business.
work at home. It's
There-
hard, it's a
there's-
hard calculation to do
But a
accurately.
CPA, you can't, you're not gonna get it to the penny or even to
No,
the
might
dime.
not even get it to
But an
their order
accountant
now.
has there's a set formula, it can
But
be
it's-
done.
It's really hard to allocate, just like part of your house where you do home business.
Right.
I mean, the IRS challenges people on that all the time. It's like a red flag for
Which is why they no longer allow it, right?
Yeah, so but I mean, I do work for universities where they charge 50% overhead, and I do work for companies that charge 100%. And part of it has to do with, well, some people, like all the secretaries, you know, are just overhead. In some places, they direct bill. In some places, the computers are all overhead costs, or IT. In some places, it's direct bills. So it's a really, I mean, if that's all you do for your business, you know, if you're a government contractor, you have to do it right. You get audited, and you have to be able to support the rates. Like, you know, municipalities rarely have to break out those costs, so I don't know that.
But I think that we don't even have to ask her to come up with indirect costs, because I think we'll be able to get, if we can know what the market rate is. And I disagree. I think you can come up with an average hourly time on
Sure you
these
can.
tasks.
Sure you
People
can.
have been doing them forever. That, you know,
But
yes,
you-
some are gonna take longer than others, but you add that up and you divide by the number of tasks, and you come up with an hourly rate.
If you're in a private business and you can't do that, you're not in business very long.
Right.
That's right.
And then if it's
But I-
$90
But they
an
have
hour, then
estimators
maybe
and
we
all.
wanna say, okay, we're concerned about the indirect cost. But if it comes back at $40 an hour, I think we'd be pretty comfortable that the balance is gonna cover that mysterious indirect cost. I'm not comfortable that 10% is gonna cover that indirect cost. I just don't think it will.
Well, I mean, so are people more concerned about the 10% being too low than the $90 per hour, so to speak, being too high, or both?
Well, I think both.
Okay. But I mean, the thing is, if you're competing with somebody who's doing this,
Then find that out. That's what we asked her. Tell us what the market rate is.
the market rate may be $90 an hour because the people are doing it
Might be.
as contractors, independent
And if that's
contractors.
the market rate, I'm more than happy to pay it.
Okay, I mean, I think the way it works, if we set up the fee structure right, it really doesn't have a financial impact on the town, as long as we recover all of our,
Right, cost.
but the thing
It does
is,
impact the town if the 10% doesn't cover
Right,
the
the
indirect
direct
right,
costs.
now,
Because then we're subsidizing.
I mean, we're
it.
covering only, we're doing the 90/10 split on the temporary health inspectors, but maybe that's such a small
Yeah.
deal, you know, to do these festivals, that it doesn't matter whether we do it right or not. But this is still, I mean, I think it's It's I think it's about $20,000 a year we're talking about here for total in and out. So even if we get it wrong, it's not gonna be a huge problem, but we should try to probably get it a little more nailed down, I guess.
I personally, my biggest problem with it was just that there was nothing, she could provide us with nothing to support her position.
Well, she's gonna send us a spreadsheet, I think, that has some data from the Charlton anyways, or-
And I don't want to subsidize her indirect costs. If
And there can be an issue, because if you've got electricians and plumbers who are master electricians and plumbers
Yeah.
inspecting for $50 an inspection, and it takes them an hour, they're getting paid $50 an hour. If someone else is getting $90 an hour, my reaction, if I were one of those tradespeople, would be, what about me? I
Yeah,
have a license too, you know?
Yeah,
Now,
actually,
there's a big difference between
Mr. Electrician though, like,
an engineering degree.
Right.
But this is not an engineering degree. What is an RSA?
RS.
Registered
So
Registered
what's the going rate
sanitation.
for an RS?
right,
What's that
that's
mean?
what we need to know. That's all we're asking. What's the going rate for an RS? And then how long does it take to do this? We can do the math from there. It's
If it
not
averages
that
3 hours,
complicated.
then it's 3 hours. If
Right.
it averages 3 hours, we want to be safe, we'll pay for 4.
Right,
And
right.
prorate it up and raise it a third, or
And
whatever.
then I suspect that we're gonna be pretty comfortable with what the percentage is to cover our indirect costs, even if we can't capture those.
Right, and I'm interested in the things she identified as emerging issues, the opioids, the marijuana, all of those different emerging issues. If she could bring us a little more specificity
I'm not going to say that.
on what is happening now and what she anticipates in the future, that would be good.
Okay,
well, I mean, some of the marijuana depends on whether, we have allowed, we
kind
are
of an
allowing
unknown
Do you
unknown.
the medical, but we have not
Do you agree?
yet allowed the recreational, and that's a
Before we
whole,
even got here tonight.
Okay.
Her language was a little confusing.
Other-
I thought.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
About,
area.
what's that?
Been there, seen that.
Bees nest?
Yeah, bees net, the recreation, we have not yet allowed recreational and marijuana. in
Right, and I think
Sturbridge.
what-
So, I mean, is that even really something
I
that they
think-
will have to get into?
I think we will by virtue of allowing the medical.
But I think the medical, I guess there's something in their contract that allows them in a few years
Yeah, I
to
think,
be
Yeah,
able to
and there
do
was some,
recreational.
the last.
Just my
the last one
uneducated
before the
observation.
selectmen meeting, there was some consternation with the Board of Selectmen that they weren't fully and completely informed when they took the original votes. They didn't feel, well, they weren't comfortable with the fact that because we did medical marijuana, it automatically trips us into the recreational. I think that they felt that they didn't have the full
They thought
picture.
there was a
Or maybe the regs weren't specific enough at that point. But I've got a feeling they weren't in favor of the recreational portion of that.
didn't the
at all.
town vote for it at the town meeting? I mean, I think we voted against it at the election, but then we voted
At the
for it.
election, it got voted down, heavily voted
But-
down. Town
Town
meeting
meeting.
passed.
Passed easily,
Yeah.
so,
But there is a zoning moratorium on right now, so there's still technically a moratorium
All
on
the old people
recreational.
voted the polls.
but I think
Until-
if we do have recreational, I think we have to do things like
Then there is a whole,
certify that this has got the right amount of active ingredient in it. if
right,
it's,
yeah,
you know,
I think there would be a lot of
That might,
added.
yeah.
that might
work.
explain her language, which was a little confusing to me. She said, we have a medical marijuana facility, and we have to look forward to retail. And I didn't know if she meant retail,
I think
medical
that's what
or
she was
retail
referring to, that
recreational.
that can switch over to recreation.
After
I
5
think we-
years.
5
I
years.
think
Yeah.
it's,
See, I don't know if that was in the contract or if that's part of the state regs, I don't.
I thought it was a
I
state
think it's
reg, but-
contractual, I don't think it's part of the state
No?
regs.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was state reg.
I don't think so. I think you can have one and not the other, like legally.
okay.
The thing I was trying to listen to, and I know that everybody asked the same question, I didn't really get a firm answer on a few things. One of them is, or the main one is, how is she being paid now? And who is paying
You mean for
it?
the,
The Title
sanitary?
V, yeah.
Oh.
What
Well,
did
they
she
have
s-
leftover money from the,
Oh, that was what you were talking about. I heard that
in the
part.
salary
Okay.
account, because, well, first of all, Bree was hired
Yeah,
at a
the-
lesser
the
amount, but
dis-
also there
the
was a
difference.
vacancy for,
And she's
Right.
being
oh,
paid
and
hourly.
Jamie was part-time.
So she's paying hourly,
I think
paid
so. I
hourly.
think
Is she,
Said $40 an hour.
so she's at,
No,
For perk test,
for the perk test.
Yeah.
but how is she being paid now?
with that money.
With that money in the salary
No,
budget.
I mean, how much, I should say, I'm sorry.
Well, they said 40.
I think that's.
No, I thought it said $40
40
an
for
hour.
the perk test.
See, nobody knows, because I didn't hear her answer it.
I don't think we.
Oh, you mean for the plan review?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, but right now,
I don't think
I thought she
she
was just being
cleared
paid
up
hourly.
exactly how much she's getting paid. and
she
how. I thought it
didn't,
was close
because
to
I
the
didn't hear
40,
it. I kept waiting for it.
Mike's writing this down.
Yeah, what is she getting paid?
So
now?
I'd like to know what
She
she's
said
getting
40,
paid
but-
now. And then another thing that
Title
caught my,
V.
for Title V. Another thing that caught my attention was, and this is true, you know, the Board of Health can go ahead and contract these services out
Yep.
because they have the means. So I guess I was confused. I didn't know if there was something behind that comment, because we know that they can go out and contract it out. So I didn't know if the plan was, well, if this doesn't happen, we're just gonna contract it out of our revolving fund. Did anyone else hear that? Because I wasn't
I
quite
don't
sure
think
what
they
she
can-
meant by
They
it.
can use the existing revolving fund because it's set up for specific, it lists the purposes.
I think
But-
she was confusing two different issues. The
Okay.
law that she was stating gives them the authority to set these fees, we don't have any control over that, but at the end of the day, we have to approve her budget. And at the end of the day, if she's putting a warrant article on to add a revolving fund, we have to approve that. But
But they are somewhat independent, though. They
Right.
she
hired,
could do the 90/10,
Agree.
I think, without us.
Right.
Yes. I
Right.
think
It
you're
sounds
right.
like they can, because they do have additional revenues that
They have
they're,
additional, they are somewhat of an independent board, yes.
but
Right.
maybe some of those revolving funds are a little bit more specific. But I thought we loosened up a few of them recently. In the past few years, it seems to me some of them were redefined.
The other question.
Maybe
that
not
we
to
had-
include it, but.
It's already pretty broad. I don't know if it would include this. I think the way it's set up, I think if they want to do a revolving fund, that's a warrant article. I guess the selectmen could decide not to put that on the warrant if they don't agree with it, or,
Well, there was just a change in how that's done, though. We just approved that.
well, we
Yeah, meeting.
approve, we don't have to renew them every year. We
Year.
set the limits.
you.
but we-
Not making a line item takes it out of our hands.
Yeah.
Not making a warrant item takes it out of selectmen. So
Yeah.
there is something that I'm not comfortable with that just
Would-
makes me feel.
No, it would be a warrant article. Because
Right.
Everything's revolving fund.
Right.
So that would be, the question I still have outstanding is building and plumbing inspector, electrical and plumbing inspectors.
Oh.
There's a salary line item in
Right.
there. They're paid a fee.
Right.
I understand the issue of, well, I put $20,000 in there. I got
$40
a
an
lot of
hour?
tests. I gotta come back for more money. We haven't had a problem this year with, oh, you've got more inspections, we'll give you the more money. Not a problem because the fee's gonna cover that extra expense. We're kept whole, if not ahead. So why is this one going through a revolving fund, which is different than how we treat those other two inspectors there?
Right, because if you look at the stuff that Nelson gave us, and I did, all those fees that he's got built in there by square footage and all that, his income more than covers those fees that we're gonna charge for electrical and plumbing inspections.
Yes.
It just does.
I mean, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, charging 90/10 is the same as a fixed fee. It's because if there's a reinspection required, the person involved doesn't get more money. So it still is a fixed fee. So,
So if it takes a plumber an hour to inspect the job, you gotta
Yeah.
pay him $200, if that's 90% of the fee? I mean, I'm just looking at what's a fair and equitable wage to pay the person doing the job.
but right now, we're paying them per inspection.
Right now, she's being paid $40.
$40 an
Oh,
hour
yeah.
she's being paid
An hour.
right now.
Right.
We're
And
talking.
they don't currently have a revolving fund that they can use for
Well,
this.
can
This
we,
is Barbara.
what was she
But I bet you
paid
might-
as an
you could do that,
inspector?
Nelson, on
Right,
average,
yeah,
what
why
it
are we
takes
putting her on a
for
line?
electrical
Why did they
plumbing
just,
inspectors.
why did,
$40 an hour, if she were
where did that
working-
come from?
I think that's their hourly rate right now.
Right now.
As a part-time employee.
So she's getting paid, she's not getting paid the 90/10, she's getting paid a straight $40 an hour for everything that she
Yes.
does around Title V.
Yes.
Okay.
Now remember, she was the health inspector prior.
Agent. No, she was the agent.
So what was she being paid then? She was the agent?
Yes.
She was the agent.
She's a part-time agent.
She was the part-time agent, so what was she making then?
It was about, I don't know.
And if she was doing 60% of septic systems, we can very easily calculate.
Right?
her. That's what I mean, it's like.
So
there's
where did that
something
number
that's
come
not sitting
from?
right.
Well, you can read my note.
Mike, did I understand correctly, the person's an employee now, and they will continue to be an employee if they go to this 90/10 fixed fee?
No,
I heard that.
They would be an employee, though, to be paid,
That would be her?
I heard her say
it
that
would be Jamie, yes.
yeah, it would be Jamie as a town
So
employee,
Jamie's a part-time agent?
but no insurance and no
I don't know that she got
retirement
it.
and all that.
But for instance, they'd be covered under our insurance for
No, she said no benefits.
So no benefits, but
benefits, but like,
for
Liability.
liability, for liability,
Yes,
she
for liability
would.
and for workers' comp
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
forth. I would think so.
Well, she did say that. She did say that.
Yeah, you can't, you have to do that.
And the reason for that, Bruce, what I heard her say was
Well, that's
because
a-
she has to be a town employee for that
verifiable
liability, because
cost, I would think.
she wouldn't
Workers'
be able
comp.
to make decisions on behalf of the town as a consultant.
Somewhat.
We don't have workers' comp in town.
That's how I heard her.
There's a liability,
under that
we
authority.
have.
I thought we did.
We have overall
Yeah.
insurance. I don't think municipal.
Well, she has to be either an employee or an agent.
I thought it was just police and fire that didn't.
Okay, okay.
and last thing, big picture, Mike, I didn't really hear a reason why all the fees are changing. Was it purely the state? She said all of the fees are changing, but she didn't say why.
Well, she did say
They said they were.
All the
old. They hadn't-
regulations are changing,
out the date, I think.
They were, well, they said they hadn't looked at them in quite some time, and
yeah.
Okay. It's not like state mandated or one institution that's causing it.
no,
No.
I don't believe so, no.
We do that in departments periodically. We've done it for the building inspector. and-
Yeah, we usually
But
do.
did they have to hire a septic system person because they now have to pay attention to revamping their fees? I mean, I get it, it appears to me that the Board of Health has a broader range of responsibilities, and they need extra help, and they need to focus on these things. I'm just not convinced that, one, we need to have a separate septic person. Why our current agents can't do it. We now have a full-time agent, we have a part-time agent, we have a department head. So what were all those people doing before when we only had an agent and a department head? I'm just not convinced that,
I thought you said before you were convinced, you just.
well, I'm convinced that if we're gonna do it, that I think that doing it as a separate contract makes sense, because then we're not paying for services not done.
She's full-time.
You know
They're
what I
not
mean?
needed.
Well, to your point, Karen, and I didn't, this is just me, and I'm just gonna blurt it out, because I don't know how else to say it, but in the memo that we got, the last paragraph kind of struck me as an interesting comment for someone who's only been here 6 weeks. For an individual on the job 6 weeks to make this kind of a statement, if you look at the last section of the paragraph, I don't know how she can ascertain that she can or cannot do those duties that she was hired to do in the first place 6 weeks ago,
Because of all these other.
because of all
things
these
that are
other
hinging on
things.
the time.
And I just, one analogy is when, a few years ago, when we had a different fire chief, he came on board, and he had plans to do this, that, and the other thing, and staffing and all that, and, they put the brakes on him because, you've only been here a short time. Pretty sure that
He did a lot, though.
he did do a lot. I'm referring to.
We spent hundreds of
Chief Zin-
thousands of dollars in new equipment and training that wasn't being done.
Right, but he wanted additional staffing,
Yeah,
Zinther, and he never got it.
okay, but he did.
No, he did. He actually
fresh look
did
at
quite
it.
a lot of organization. He did manage to get his admin, I think we upped her time, but he didn't get his staff. He did not get the staff that he
Yeah.
wanted. So,
Well, we're talking about, part of a person here.
yeah, and maybe it's not really the same thing.
Right.
They are two different departments, two different positions, so you could kind of, fudge around with that. But in principle,
Mhm.
he was here a short time, and they were like, well, why don't you check it out for a little bit
Yeah, but
longer?
Linda's been here for a long time. I think it's a lot of.
No,
this
no,
is
no,
coming
this,
from her.
I'm referring to the person who wrote this.
I
It was
think
Bree.
she's talking
Well-
about agent.
She's only been here 6 weeks.
Right, but she's getting guidance from I think when we hired her, they had an idea of what they would like her to do in terms of professionalizing the department. So I
Oh,
think,
Joni, I had.
Okay, but
In
I'm,
fairness to her, just a comment, maybe when she came in and saw what we weren't doing, and she's relatively new and she's up to date because she's recently educated in this field, she's not an old timer, she might have said, made people aware that there's all this stuff we're not doing that we should be doing.
Could
So
be.
she may have opened somebody's eyes, because fresh eyes look at an old organization and say, boy, we're missing the boat on.
Right.
this,
No, I know,
that,
we,
and the
we
other thing.
we
So-
talked
So,
about
Joan, I had
that.
the same
but-
concern you did when I talked to her before about that, because I said I might raise this issue, didn't want you to think I was picking on a new employee. She had also said that a lot of that direction came from goal setting between her, Linda, Leon, and others in town. So it wasn't just her saying, hey, I'm the new person in town, sheriff in town, I want to go in this direction. It was really coming from a range of, I'm the new employee, what is it you're expecting of me? And here are all the areas that haven't been, as Linda was saying, we haven't necessarily focused on and addressed. We need to focus on these, and now when you look at how much effort they feel they need to put into that to get up to speed and get those moving, the Title V is going to be an area that prevents them from moving there, is
Well,
what
this
they were saying.
interfaces with what you brought up with Jean about that service you wanted to get, and we all thought it was a good idea, but let's wait and see what it can be expanded into for outside services, so we get more bang for the buck. Well, maybe there are some things here that they're gonna have her do that might be more efficiently done by outside consultants coming in and saying, well, you don't have to spend 100 hours doing this. Here, fill in the blanks. Here's a 40-page document, you just plug in the name of the town and different things, I mean,
Well, that's true,
Well,
I
I
mean,
think that
because
is an
there are
example.
certain
But,
regulations.
you know,
Yeah.
One of the things they want to do is put a lot of the forms online that are not available
Right.
right now.
But that's a
But that-
data entry
but that-
position.
that's
You don't wanna
since she-
pay a
something she should be
department
doing.
Yeah.
head to plug data
But
into
she has,
the
somebody has to
online
supervise
form.
that and approve the forms.
if you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
buy the
Make sure they
document,
conform.
fill in the blanks.
Right, that's
Why
always the reason.
why hasn't it been done then?
Because they haven't had time, but maybe you hire a high school kid to come in and plug the forms
It
in.
hasn't been done because our
Which-
agent
which they
wasn't
have
working
done in the
full-time.
past.
It's a part-time job.
Well,
We need her
but she
full-time.
was only part-time for a couple of years. I mean, we had,
Right, but we didn't need her full-time.
no, but we had Alyssa was
Now we have this
full-time
backlog of
for
stuff
7
to
or 8 years.
What's that?
Oh, yeah.
Alyssa was full-time for 7 or
But
8
that
years.
is more of a administrative assistant type job to do forms and stuff like that, I would think. I don't know. I mean, and she says she wants to be more in the office, and there were complaints. There are complaints about people who are always out in the field and that nobody can ever catch them. I mean, I do think that's
Oh, that's a valid complaint.
That's a good thing to have.
Building inspector.
Oh, yeah.
certain office hours.
He's
and
We don't,
have
I
that
mean, the building
expectation.
inspector does not do the plumbing inspections or
No.
electrical inspections, so it's kind of the same
It is, yeah.
analogy, that you don't have the professional looking under the sink, it's-
But I don't recall in the past few years, anyway, that this was a problem. And maybe Title V, needing another person to do it. And maybe it's to your point that it's a new, fresh set of eyes or a different set of goals that was made. But I don't ever remember any discussions where the Board of Health needed the Title V to be a separate thing. It was always, the inspections needed to be full-time and full-time agent and all that. I never heard, well, Title V has to be handled.
And I think what Linda was saying is, whether it was Alyssa or it was Jamie, whoever we had in that position in the last several years, a lot of their time has been taken up on Title V, some of the other inspections that they were filling in before we had the full-time inspector doing those. And the other things that were on the front end of that memo that they wanted to focus on didn't necessarily get the attention. And now she's saying there's some new regs from the state, there's other things coming in that the Board of Health wants to say, we need to start focusing on these issues. We've kind of not necessarily addressed them over the last couple of years. We need to put some effort on this with a full-time agent, with the agent that we have here, and given the amount of time that they feel that they need to put into that, to have all that Title V work drain some of that time, they'd rather have Bree work on this stuff, and they can get the Title V done via this other person on a part-time basis, so that they could focus on these issues without Title V restricting that.
Mike,
But
if that's
I
the
think Karen
case,
raised a question. That might be good for the first year. Now that you dive into this thing and you get focused on it, you get your hands around it, and it becomes more of a routine thing. Is there another new task that requires a lot of time, or can you start doing more, picking up more of the Title V and have that one position do everything that they need over at the Board of Health?
does it make sense then that Bree wrote the memo and not the department head?
Well, she is the
She's the
department head.
department head.
Oh, I thought Bree was the agent.
The agent is
The
the
agent's
department.
department head.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we have, throughout the history of I've been here, we used to have a conservation clerk, and now we have a conservation agent. We have a full-time person. Used to have a part-time planner.
Right.
We have a full-time planner. We've been professionalizing all of these departments, and usually it happens, when somebody comes in and looks at the job from a different perspective, and they see things, the same thing happened in the fire department. The guy came in and said, we haven't been inspecting these breaks for the last 10 years, where are the records, where are all these, things that should have been done routinely weren't being done. So, I think I like her initiative. I like a lot of these things. I'd rather have her spend more time on than trudging through the fields, doing perk tests, but,
You don't want to do a $12 an hour work.
what's that?
You don't want to have someone in that position doing
Yeah.
$12 an hour work.
Right, I remember Alyssa talking about, she wanted to get a pair of work boots so she could walk
Right.
around in the muck, because they didn't provide her with a budget for clothing. So,
Maybe it's just a matter of style. Maybe, maybe Alyssa preferred to do more of the
Maybe she likes being
hands-on
outside.
stuff, and maybe this person doesn't, I guess.
right, well, she hasn't done it yet. She hasn't done it
But
before.
6 weeks, yeah, it's hard to really,
So, I think maybe, maybe Alyssa thought that was the most important function that she could serve as health inspector.
Is she the one who's gonna be doing the Title V? Is Alyssa, that's somebody different?
No,
Okay.
that's Jamie, yeah.
she was the previous
Previous
agent,
person.
full-time agent.
Right.
Regulatory stuff is where you get in trouble.
Well, and that's where I think the agent should come into play, but then you've also got the board. Do you not?
Well, I think they do see, we have a volunteer board. I don't think they're paid, right?
No.
And they've taken on tremendous, they manage a pretty big set of activities, and
They do,
I know Linda
yes.
put in a tremendous amount of time on the whole landfill thing.
Yeah.
That was kind of all-consuming for a long, and it looks like that's kind of easing now. So now they can turn their attention to some newer things, new initiatives, some things that they planned for, and some things that they didn't, like this update of regulations, the medical marijuana. Some of these things are just coming. They're just coming whether we wanted them or not, but,
And that's a part-time board. They should be dealing with the health policy issues for the town. They have to address the appeals and some of the other things that have to come to them for overall approval as the board there.
Yeah.
But the day-to-day full-time activities of carrying out all these other rules, regulations, really goes to the agent and the staff positions, not part-time board members who are trying to, do everything during the day versus just focus on the more policy, board-related,
right.
big-picture items that they should be.
Thank you. I didn't quite understand that.
And we have new regulations coming from the state. We have to decide if we want to make ours the same or more restrictive. If we change them, I think we have to do public hearings?
They have to,
That's what it
they have
sounds
to
like, yeah.
publicize
Yeah.
them, and I believe they have to have public hearings.
I know
Because they have the authority to adopt those
adopt those,
regulations.
right. I
Yeah,
know
they have to be
added
published in the paper. I
extra
know.
money for legal
Yeah,
notices and things.
and I think that's what
so-
that was for.
so,
Because otherwise, I think they, usually applicants would pay fees for
Right.
public hearings.
Anyway, okay, I think I have enough information
Okay.
to bring back to them.
All right.
I
Any,
had one last question.
Yes.
Did she say that 2 hours a day the library has no staff?
No, the children's
Okay.
portion doesn't have staff for a couple hours a day, but
Thank
it's
you.
still open.
So, really, okay.
But the upstairs is fully staffed.
She, I think last year or maybe even the year before, she got additional,
I think she's got
Hours for that
additional hours
person,
for the
yeah.
children's library.
which is what she wanted, so.
Yeah. I mean, some of it might be, I'm not really sure, but, the library's open till, what, 8:30? And you wouldn't necessarily expect young children to be out
Right.
that late, I hope.
That makes sense.
I don't think so.
Yeah, but as I recall it, the chief issue was that you have 2 floors,
Yeah.
Right.
and at times,
Super.
especially in the winter, starting at about 4:45 or 5 p.m., there were times frequently when there would be one staff member in the building, a female, and anybody can walk in.
Right.
And if there is a youngster downstairs, who's monitoring
Right.
Yeah, they don't
the
know.
kid? And it was really concerning, so I think that got resolved.
Yes. Yep. Wait, any other old business? New
So
business?
since Jim reminded me, the codification software that Jean had in her budget that we asked her to do a little work on, I did stop in her office last week. She gave me the copy of the proposal, and the company had a list of towns in there. There's a lengthy list, I can give them to you, but if I just tell you that town of Charlton is one of them, if you check I did check their website. If you look for whether it's general bylaws or planning bylaws or rules or regulations, there's a page that kind of takes you, and it's all in there. So if you wanted to see what it looked like from a user perspective on the outside, you could look for some of those bylaws on the Charlton page.
Interesting. Okay. Any other new business? If not, if there's no public access, is there a motion to adjourn? 9:21? Is somebody make that motion?
Bruce?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? See you Tuesday.
Did you just say 9:22?
I said 9:21.